Once again, a humble request if you can mingle and sit. So if the youth don't mingle, maybe the elders who are here in the hall come forward, pick up the youth and say you change your place. Okay? And don't leave empty spaces in between because some trains are late. So we are expecting around 15-20 youngsters to join also. So as many chairs other than the first 2 rows over here, if you can fill, it will be helpful. The request is to mingle and sit, okay, not to go out. There are a lot of chairs here. If someone wants to come to the front, you are welcome. Yes, Billy, you are showing the way. Thank you. So let me get into my official duty and welcome the moderator for the next panel. The next panel will be moderated by a very eminent person, Mr. Jacob Punnus IPS, the former DGP of Kerala. Jacob Punnu sir was the Director General of Police Kerala, and as a state police chief, he retired after serving for more than 35 years in the Indian Police Service and the Kerala Police. He is Executive Director of Pushpagiri Medical College and is Secretary of the Pastoral Council of the major eparchy of Trivandrum. He was the City Police Commissioner of Trivandrum and Kozhikode, Joint Excise Commissioner, Zonal IG of Trivandrum and Kozhikode, Intelligence IG, Additional DGP Training, and Intelligence DGP. He has also served as Vigilance Director and as the Chairman of the Kerala Police Act Review Committee. Mr. Punnu sir, it's a great honor to have you in our midst. You know, we are meeting actually for the first time, and he was kind enough to respond to us over the call and maybe through Mr. Johnson's friendship. So thank you, sir, for joining us, and I hand over the dais and the panelists to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph, and good morning to all of you. We meet now for a panel discussion on the statewide protocol on prevention approach for action against the menace of drugs. We have got very eminent speakers. The time available to us is short, so I will also be brief. I'll just start off this session by saying a few things on which I hope the panelists will respond as they give their presentations. The first is, all the persons represented in the panel are one on the side of social defense. The other two are on the side of enforcement. From my experience as a police officer, I have realized that there are limits to enforcement, and that the preventive approach will, in the long run, be more successful to meet the menace of drugs. As you all know, the NDPS Act is the most draconian act enacted in India in the 20th century, and it is beaten in the 21st century by the UAPA. But in the 20th century, the prize for the most draconian act goes to the NDPS Act. But unfortunately, despite the severity of the act has not been successful in either eliminating or in reducing or in solving the problem of drugs. So in its ultimate purpose of prevention of drug abuse or substance abuse, it has not succeeded. This is not to say that none has been sincere. There has been a lot of effort going on. Very, very great work has been done by the NCB, by the state police departments, the state excise departments, and a lot of effort has gone into it. But still, because of certain basic weaknesses, I will identify two weaknesses. One is that the Act in its sections does not make a distinction between the consumer, between the addict, between the peddler, between the conspirator, between the distributor, the producer. In a drug transaction, all these fellows are involved at some stage. But the Act just puts all of them together in one lot and prescribes a punishment. Therefore, the investigation rarely goes into the question of the nature of the offense conducted by the accused. And usually, therefore, 80 to 90% of the people arrested in NDPS Act offenses happen to be drug addicts and casual drug users who ought to be considered properly as victims and have to be treated out of this condition in which they are in. But unfortunately, we continue to fill our jails with people who should be treated as victims rather than as offenders, though there is a provision for it. The Act provides for rehabilitative treatment, but we hardly ever use for that. And second weakness of the Act is, the Act makes a distinction between small quantity and large quantity. This is a distinction not known to Indian police in its criminal history, because we have been following the Indian Penal Code for our basic responses, and in theft, or in breach of trust, or in robbery, or in dacoity, the offense is not defined in terms of the size of the seizures, or the amount of property stolen, or the amount of money cheated, or amount of money misappropriated. That invariably is left to the court to decide to rate, to graduate the punishment with the actual nature of the offense. But here, the small quantity is defined, and therefore even a great conspirator caught with a small quantity will get benefit of the Act, or a cultivator, or a producer, or a distributor caught with a small quantity will get the benefit of the small quantity. So these two weaknesses in the Act have stylely made the enforcement of the Act. It is very, very elaborate, but at the same time, it has prevented achievement of the focus. Again, I was the special rapporteur for National Human Rights Commission for 2 years, and I had occasion to visit large number of jails in Kerala and Tamil Nadu. And I found that a fairly large percentage of the jail population are people who have been regularly arrested under the NDPS Act. I would like to believe that they are confirmed sellers or peddlers. But unfortunately, my suspicion is that most of them are actually addicts, and who go in for repeated use and who are arrested by police or enforcement agencies repeatedly. I found very few people who have been involved in large-scale transactions in jails. So there is a need for adopting a preventive approach. At the same time, all is not dark. There are very, very good silver linings in this field, because many agencies, I personally know the State Excise Department of Kerala, the State Police Department of Kerala, both have been in the forefront of popularizing a preventive culture, a socio-cultural involvement in the matter of drug menace in schools and in society in general. The Kerala Police has formed, as you know, the Student Police Cadet Project. One of its activities is also anti-drug campaigning among students. We have also formed two very eminent doctors who are associated with the project, the ORC, Our Responsibility to Children. They are also in this audience. From them, we can learn about the efforts the ORC is also making to prevent drug abuse among children, and it is a project with a lot of potential for that. The State Excise Department has launched a program called Vimukti, which is also stressing on prevention. So the preventive aspect of enforcement and the coordination needed among the various agencies is a matter of great importance if we want to create a society which is free from the drug menace. Punishing the victims and putting people in jail is very important. It is very, very important. I'm not diminishing its importance at all. But at the same time, if we want to have a safe future for our generations, we must take note of the fact that the number of offenses detected are increasing day by day. Not because the production is increasing, but because the law by itself has not been able to spread, has not been able to prevent the spread of this drug menace as a contagion. So there are limitations of law. There are limitations of enforcement and deterrence, and therefore we must stress on prevention. So with these few words, I will call the panelists who are each expected to speak for 10 minutes each. It is my pleasure to call upon Dr. Virendra Misra of the Indian Police Service, who is the director of the National Institute of Social Defense. He has got a lot of experience in the police, both in India as well as a researcher abroad. He has been associated with terrorism prevention, transnational crime. He was also a Fulbright scholar, and I'm sure as the director of the National Institute of Social Defense, he will share his thought with you, which will be very useful for our deliberations. Dr. Misra, thank you. I will also call Mr. Bruno Albert, who is the zonal director of the Narcotics Control Bureau based in Chennai. It's also my pleasure to call upon Sri D. Rajiv to present himself on the stage. He is from the Indian Ordnance Factory Service, now on deputation with the Government of Kerala, and is the Chief Executive Officer of the Vimukti Mission, which I referred to, and he is also the Additional Excise Commissioner, Government of Kerala. Now I call upon Dr. Misra to speak. Dr. Misra.
Thank you, and good morning to all. I can see many young faces here. So I would like to address them more because it's going to be very relevant to them. So my job has been made little easy as well as difficult after Mr. Khagesh's, director from ministry's presentation, because he has already spoken about what an ISD is. So I don't know exactly, maybe I may overlap. And it's little difficult because I don't know then what I'm supposed to speak. So anyway, I will try my best. So basically, what is the government's approach? So the government's approach is two-pronged, which has already been spoken by him. One is to check the supply, that is to control supply, and the second is demand reduction. The supply control is done by various agencies, particularly the enforcement agencies, which involve the revenue police and NCB. And we already have a revenue officer here. We have NCB representation, and police is also here. So we have two police officers here. So all the enforcement agencies which are supposed to look at the supply side are on the dais. And drug demand reduction activities are carried out by Ministry of Health, Social Justice and Empowerment, and the other concerned sectors. And, so I'm again representing both the police as my, primary cadre, and right now working in Ministry of Social Justice and Enforcement. So, my more focus is on drug demand reduction. And the other sectors, when we say other sectors, means health, of course, and besides all the people who are sitting here, most of them who are coming from NGOs and community-based organizations, civil society. So you are our partners here. Now, what NISD does, National Institute of Social Defense. So NISD is basically an autonomous body under the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, Government of India. And the mandate is to provide technical support to the ministry's programs on substance abuse prevention. We do have additional mandate as well, so we are not talking about that because we are just focusing here on drugs. Otherwise, just to add to it, we work with elderly people. We have in our mandate transgender as well as PEGRI, though we are not focusing much on that right now. So it is elderlies and the drug prevention. So drug prevention is our, a main focus area right now of National Institute of Social Defense. And we totally bank on intersectoral collaboration because as in the morning, the presentation, they were saying that, okay, we cannot work in silos. If you're talking about drug demand, so you cannot isolate yourself and think that, okay, you are the only, protagonist and you just move in the field and you can change the world. No, it cannot happen. When we talk about drugs, the drug itself, the supply chain, if you understand it, it's an organized crime. So there are so many people who get involved for the drugs to be floated in the market, to be, to push the people to consume. So similarly, if you have to reduce the demand, then certainly you have to be organized equally. So you have to counter it in an organized way. And so that is why you cannot work in silo. So you have to have these intersectoral collaborations, and that is why we focus a lot on convergence of services and forging linkages. We work on unified monitoring framework so that we know exactly, evaluate and do some social audit where exactly we stand after a certain period of time of implementation. And when promoting networking stakeholders, this is very important component of our work, what NISD is doing. So what are the preventive strategies to decrease demand reduction? One is we share the knowledge and skills. And let me tell you, when we say share knowledge and skills, at the same time, we are also on the learning curve, and we also try to learn and improve and enhance our skills as well, and enhance our knowledge as well. That is, we say research is, again, a very important component of NISD. So whatever we learn, we try to share with our stakeholders. And then developing decision-making and behavioral skills. That is one, again, important component, because just sharing knowledge doesn't work in demand reduction. What is important is that the decision-making skills and the behavioral change is important component. Just knowledge sharing about drugs won't encourage a person to abstain from drugs. It doesn't go that way. It is basically you have to empower them. And then building positive relationships with our stakeholders, with the community, so that there is trust developed, there is no trust deficit, because most of the problem with the government organization and the community is that there is a huge trust deficit. Even within NGOs, there is huge trust deficit. So important component is that there should be trust. Then only the intersectoral understanding and collaboration works. And supporting positive activities and changing the environment. And when we talk about changing environment, of course, everyone sitting here and every community member has an important role to play, because environment is built through your presence. Now, as Mr. Khagesh talked about National Action Plan on Drug Demand Reduction, this is what is the Government of India has, the Ministry of Social Justice has launched recently, and this is this has been implemented or promulgated just with an intention to focus completely on drug demand reduction. So they have come out with an action plan. So what does it aim? It aims to reduce the onset of drug abuse by early identification and early intervention. This is very important. Why do we need to reduce the onset of drug, basically intake? It is because it is said, study says, I don't know if Dr. Atul mentioned about it, because it doesn't, I don't remember that he mentioned about it. But still, if he has mentioned it, it makes sense to reiterate that if a person under 18 takes drugs, then the chances of them leaving the drug is little difficult. And if the person above 18 takes the drugs, then the chances of him, leaving the drug is more. So that is why if at all a person has to take drug, has to means if you can't stop them totally, completely from taking drugs, at least delay it. That is why we say that if you want to do some intervention, start at an early age. So this is one of the major component of our action plan. And then reduce the adverse consequences of drug abuse through a multi-pronged strategy. And that would involve preventive education, treatment, and rehabilitation of individuals and families, building capacities, facilitate research, and whole person recovery. We haven't done much on research, but already, like, by sitting with a friend here in Exercise, we said that, okay, he said that we would like to do research. I said we would like to partner. So we are forthcoming, we are inviting research, we want to do research, we want to build a capacity on the basis of evidence, not just on the basis of hearsays. Because most of the time we work, the way government works, I mean, that is my experience of being in services for years, is that we go intuitive. We think that, okay, if we have heard something, or in our experience 10 years back, if we have seen something, we think the same thing still remains, but actually it doesn't. The social dynamics is so fast that what was 10 years before is not exactly what it is right now. So our policies and our action should be totally dependent on research. So NISD plans to do that, and we will go very aggressively on research as well. So the activities of NAPDD is more focusing on preventive interventions, and that is we build the capacity and TOT of our stakeholders, and then do the awareness campaigns through them and even directly. And in the treatment centers to create minimum standards of care, which would involve facilities of resource essential to be established, a variety of programs and frequencies, specific roles and responsibilities. So everything be put in a proper framework, and then we empower them, educate them, and sensitize them so that the proper care is given in the treatment centers. So we have we play the role in treatment centers as well as in the preventive field. So what are the categories of preventive interventions that we do, or the programs? One is universal prevention programs, means in general, when we talk about in general. So how do we cater to general mass? We may have many verticals, we may have many stakeholders, but if you use the term general. But here, again, the second is the selective prevention programs. As Mr. Khagesh talked about, the TI, targeted intervention, that we have ODIC and PLIs. That is, ODIC is outreach centers and drop-in centers that we are creating across the country. And right now we have identified 127 districts, the high-risk districts, where we are going to focus on targeted intervention. And second is the PLIs, that is peer-led interventions, where we are going to empower, we are going to educate, we are going to take the resources of the peers so that they can spread awareness. And when we talk about peers, as the question was asked on the first day, the important peers that we are banking a lot on are ex-users. So the ex-users, because they have their experience, they know how it works in the field, so they would be our peers so that they can educate, their own group there. And even the acceptability increases. So our partners are many. As I told you, we are spreading ourselves thin. We have a target. We have to reach many people. India is a big country, but we can't be complacent saying that, okay, we did 1,000 programs or something like that. What we plan is to have more than 6,000, 7,000 programs a year. And for that, we need many, many partners. And we want to reach each section of the community. And, to schools through NCRT and SCRT. These are the bodies in the state as well as the country head NCRT. So we reach school through them. The NSS and NYK, as I told you, that NSS is working in educational institutions, is the biggest body in the world, and NYK is again working in the rural sector. These are the organizations of Ministry of Youth, Government of India, having almost 4 million youth associated with them. Then the NIRDs and SIRDs are the Panchayati Raj institutions, that is the local self-government bodies. And then enforcement agencies, as we said, police and the paramilitary forces, prison settings, child welfare institutions, are important because under the JJ Act, there are two types of vulnerable children in the country. One is who is in need of care and protection, whom we call it as CNCP kids, and the other ones are who are in conflict with law. So there are two bodies who govern, take care of them. One is the CWC Child Welfare Committee, and the other one is the Juvenile Justice Board. So we want to empower them, we want to sensitize them as well. And similarly, the RRTCs, a couple of them are sitting here. RRTCs are the regional centers for us, who build the capacity of their own, in their own jurisdictions. And the NGOs, we are partnering with NGOs also of repute. So, there are different outcomes, but let me, tell you, because, sir, I have 3-4 minutes more? Yeah, so I'll just, before winding up, I tell you, why do we need a state protocol? The state protocol is because we want some uniformity. We cannot just hand over the programs to some stakeholders and say that, okay, you conduct an awareness program in your place. It doesn't work that way. We have to have some mandate on some proper format in which it should be catered. And at the same time, we give around 20% space to customize as per the local needs. And with this, what actually is in the mind of the NISD or the government of India goes to our stakeholders as well. So let me give you an example of when we work with police, how do we do that? It's a three-pronged approach or three objectives in our program with police. One, the police is the first respondent, if you see that. So police always would be the first one to come in contact with the drug dependent or drug user, formally from a government point of view. So we would like to sensitize them and tell them, okay, look from a different lens, as sir was saying. It is not a criminal justice system problem. As we said, it's a social justice system problem. So you are not supposed to look at them as an offender. Start looking at them as a victim. The moment you change your lens, your approach will change. Your answer to their problem will change. Then you would more be interested in sending to a rehabilitation center or treatment center rather than putting them behind the jails. So this is one objective of when we interact with police. This is what we tell them. The second one is that police has maximum presence in the community, identified presence in the community of government, because they wear the uniform so everybody would recognize them. So we say that the role that you can play in prevention, nobody else can play because you are identified easily. So we tell them, okay, start playing a role for prevention. And the third is, you come out of the denial mode. Even the police officers or the police personals are into drugs. Let me tell you, very recently, and this was an eye-opener to me, sir, and I would like to share with you, that when an officer from Mizoram came, and he said, Mizoram is a state in Northeast, for the people who have come from different countries. And in that state, the strength of the police is around 7,000 to 8,000. And every year, more than 100 police officers are dying because of drugs. Can you imagine the percentage of people dying due to drugs? Now it has come, everybody has started realizing in Mizoram, so they're talking about it. It could be prevalent anywhere. So we are asking the police that, okay, start identifying and don't be in denial mode. Even within your community, there is a problem. So this three-pronged approach, that is how we work with police. That is how we create a module. So similarly for prisons. And when we talk about ICPS is Integrated Child Protection System. Then we say that, okay, the JJB members who are dealing with the children in conflict with law and the CWC, that is the Child Welfare Committees, we say that when you come in touch with the children, then if at all, first you should know how to identify if at all he's dependent or user of drugs. And if at all he's a user or dependent of drugs, don't throw them in the homes saying that, okay, they will be cured on their own. Send them to a treatment center. Facilitate that treatment centers. Similarly, we work with the superintendents of these homes so that let them know what exactly they should do or how they should identify if a child has already come to the homes. So this is how we are working on the module so that we sensitize them, so they become more sensitive as well as responsible. So this is how we work with prisons as well, and particularly with the youth. When we work with youth, then one thing which we have to tell them is, what we have started telling them now is that, okay, fine, because, as everybody has said, that taking of drugs is very pleasurable. It gives you pleasure. But, as we say, the second stage is harmful. And every body speaks. Like if you have fever, your body will say that, okay, you have fevers. Take some medicine. Or take care of yourself. Similarly, if somebody is taking drugs, the body at some point of time starts saying that, okay, the drug is harming you. So be careful. The moment a person, we should tell them, okay, it's harmful. The moment you get into harmful effect, then certainly you should abstain from that. Start doing it. Because once you graduate from harmful effect to dependent stage, withdrawal by yourself is almost impossible. So then you are totally dependent on others. If they help you, then you work. And let me tell you, there is so much of stigma that even the treatment centers in India is hardly 450 treatment centers across the country. It doesn't even serve around, I think, 5% of the treatment required in the country. So we say that, okay, better don't use it. Better save yourselves. So these are the things how we work when we work with our stakeholders. So the outcomes, It's already here. You can read it out because I think I'm running short of time. I've already crossed the time. So this is how NISD is working. And again, before ending, I would invite you all to partner with NISD in your own way. We are open. Just come and let it make it a campaign. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Misra. All that we need, what we needed was a drug demand reduction plan, and you have given it. And he has also indicated how all those present in this hall can cooperate with him in achieving this drug demand reduction. An action plan is fully ready, and I think we will succeed by 2027. That's your target. Thank you. Next, I call upon Mr. Bruno Albert, who is the Zonal Director of the Narcotic Control Bureau in Chennai. He has been very active in effecting seizures. During the last 2 years, he has effected over 80 seizures in Tamil Nadu and in Kerala. Many of them have come in the newspapers also. I'm particularly glad because I share my college with him. He is also an alumnus of the University College Trivandrum. So I'm very happy to welcome Mr. Bruno Albert, who is considerably experienced, has been serving for 20 years in different parts of India. So, the stage is for you, Mr. Bruno Albert.
Thank you very much, sir. And thank you for Venda. First of all, I will talk about the crux of NDPS Act. As sir told, it is one of the most stringent act formed in India after the independence. That's what we also say. It has 3 features. So as sir told, that quantity, classification based on the quantity, means small quantity, intermediate quantity, and commercial quantity. The person who makes money, he is supposed to be in the commercial activity. That is the concept. So 3 types of punishments are enumerated. If it is 2 grams of cocaine, then it is small quantity. If it is in between 3 grams to 100 grams, it is intermediate quantity. And a person who possesses 100-gram cocaine, he is punishable more than 100-gram cocaine if he is found possessing, and the purity is also matching. Then he is supposed to undergo minimum 10 years of punishment. Once it is proved, then even the judge cannot decrease the quantum of punishment, because the minimum punishment is 10 years in India for 100-gram cocaine, 250-gram heroin, 20 kg ganja. This all comes in the commercial quantity. And at the same time, the stringent provisions are there. At the same time, it is highly human act. Why I say it is a highly human act? As per section 64A, 64A says about the voluntary statement of the person who has been caught abuser. Based on that, he can be sent to the de-addiction center. If he runs away from the de-addiction center, or if he is not completing the de-addiction treatment, then he is liable to, the immunity cover is withdrawn, and then he is liable for the legal action. So in that way, nowhere in Indian any of the act, this much of human provisions are there. 64A. You please read once the provision, and it is highly useful. It can be used whenever a first time you are coming across a first time abuser. He is with the possession. So this is one thing. And about NCB, I just take three things. It is under the provisions of Narcotics, Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act 1985. NCB has been formed in the year 1986, and it has all over India, there are 13 zonal units. And through that 13 zonal unit, we are enforcing the NDPS Act, being the nodal agency for the nation. And one of such zonal unit is in Chennai. Then in NDPS, there is on the NCB, NDPS, this related relating to this, I say about Chapter 5 of NDPS Act. If a person is convicted, then his property and the property of his associates and family members, which has been acquired in the last 5 years, can be confiscated. And it can be auctioned, and the auctioned money is government deposited in the fund for the drug eradication program. So these are the social benefiting clauses are also there in the Act, and we also do our best effort to confiscate the properties also, because a person who acquired money is by spoiling the society. The whole things leads to the spoiling of nation, because it is affecting the brain capacity. So we have to do that, stringent, seeing that the others should not come forth any of such activities. That's what the NCB is also following. So another thing, regarding the drug supply control, here two aspects are also told. It is, we worked on the supply control mainly in the sense, there is an entry point or an exit point for the drug. And we concentrate on the entry and the exit points. That's how our seizures are about 300 kg ganja, 400 kg ganja in a single stretch. Because the moment it is entering, we are catch out of that. The same way, the moment something is going out, like from Kerala or Tamil Nadu, most of the times, ephedrine and pseudoephedrine, they are precursors, not the drugs, as it is. It is used to make methamphetamine. You should have heard about recently that crystals, ice, meth, these are the code words. So it goes out. So we work on this exit and entry points and the trafficking points from bulk trafficking. So interdict, with the NCB strength alone, we cannot do it. So that sister agencies like any customs, anywhere this interdiction capacity building training programs we are importing. Other than that, awareness programs also we are conducting. In that, we say about this demand reduction is also equally important, because against the demand only the supply is made. Just like a taxable item, we cannot sell the drugs to the public. So always there is a demand. And why there is, how we can reduce the demand is, it's a big topic, and there are so many experts sitting here. Still, we say that sensitization, we lack sensitizing the family, sensitizing the education institutions, work institutions. This point somewhere we are lacking. Many of the people doesn't know what are the long-run consequences of drug abuse. They are using it. And many of the people doesn't know how to identify the drug abusers in their family, in their institution, and how this link is working. One example I will tell you, some of the, not majority, but some of the rave parties are conducted actually to trap the, introduce the drug to the newcomers, new users. There are links, invisible links are there, then we dictated it. They book some resort or something for about 15 lakhs or 20 lakhs and sell the entry ticket for 2,000 or 3,000, just for namesake. And there will be an assembling of 100 people, and they are getting only 3 to 4 lakhs. And why they're spending 15 lakhs and getting an income of only below 5 lakhs, they are satisfied. It is, you say that the modern corporate thinking, customer base acquisition, if I am not wrong, something like that. So there are some agents working in the, targeting the newcomers, new joiners in the institution, and they trap them to their links and take to the rave party. And there are some certain systems, including the girls, are there to introduce how to use the drug, how this benefits and all these things. And people doesn't know. So we have to sensitize. There are traps. It is not that you are going for a weekly enjoyment. So, People lose the health, wealth, family and friends, brain and body. So how they are going to lose in long run, that to be sensitized. Then there is a detection part, because once we detect it, somebody is abusing the drug, what to do next? This awareness is also very much required. Means if it is a first detection, then go for the 64A. Then other than that, then whom we have to inform? This awareness is required. Then how to respond? Means we have to respond in a very 2 minutes only, sir. In a collective manner. That means every inch in India is calculated and responsible to somebody or another one. Means take any inch of forest. The forest is responsible to one forest guard, otherwise a revenue officer or somebody. That without their knowledge, how the cultivation is happening. They are paid by the government to serve the government. Second lapse, there are factories, there's those who are pilferating these drugs or drug making components. They are licensed. And these factories are put under somebody's responsibility, who is getting the salary. So whether we lack norms or the people are irresponsible. This is the question. Because every drug originated either from a land or from a factory. So we need a very coordinated, systematic, and loophole-free system to monitor all these activities. Because it is a social cause which is endangering not only our social fabric, it is going to put our country is also in the danger. Because one more aspect, what we smelt is near very hi-fi institutions like IIT and other places, the ganja prices inside that institutions is just cheap. And you just go out of the campus and find out the price there, it is 3 or 4 times higher than that. So that means why? Is there any intentional pumping is happening? Because war is not fought with only weapons. There are so many means to fight. So I conclude my words, and let us hold our hand together for a drug-free society, and all the institutions and the families try your level best to sensitize about the danger of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bruno Albert, for an excellent presentation. Mr. Bruno Albert has highlighted the need for a coordinated and a loophole-free system of monitoring of drug-related activity. He has also invited our attention to Section 64A of the NDPS Act, by which in the first instance, the person can be referred to a de-addiction center. If such de-addiction centers are there, I'm sure more such centers should come. He has also stressed the importance of identification of the users at the earliest possible stage so that they can be prevented from further use. And also dwelt, which has come across during his enforcement, the baiting and trapping process that people resort to attract people into drug use by rave parties. These are aspects which we must consider when we try to prevent people from falling into the drug habit. The time is almost exhausted. Now, I have great pleasure in calling upon Mr. D. Rajiv, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Vimukti Mission, as well as the Additional Excise Commissioner, Government of Kerala. Mr. Rajiv, thank you.
Thank you, sir. A very good morning to all. I'm looking after the Vimukti mission of the Excise Department. Basically, the Kerala government has formed one Vimukti mission in 2016. Excise Department in Kerala is mainly looking for 2 aspects. Our main focus is to reduce the supply side. Not only reduce, it has to be stopped, and reduce the demand side. And for the reduce the supply side, what we have done that we already strengthened our enforcement activities. you can easily see that recently we are confiscating a lot of contrabands from across the Kerala. But that means that the demand side in Kerala is very high. So what we are doing, because the main issue is that the suppliers are having a lot of platforms. The technology has increased by leaps and bounds. That means that they can use various platforms. If anybody wants drugs, they can easily get the drugs. Even if they are sitting in the home also, they can easily get the drugs. So we also started the cyber cell to curb this menace from the society. I just want to introduce you to the more about the Vimukti mission. The Vimukti mission, the government understood the real issues of the drug menace in Kerala, and in 2016 we started Vimukti mission. The main aim of the Vimukti mission is that to create awareness among the, basically to the students. Why we are concentrating on the students? Because nowadays, whenever we are taking the cases, we can easily identify that mainly the school children and the adolescents people are more prone to the drug abuse. So mainly we are concentrating to the students because the students are the future citizens. If we concentrate on the students and if we could be able to give a good life to that students, easily our future of the country will be in a blossom stage. What we have done that approximately in Kerala, 16,000 schools are there. That includes aided, non-aided, and all the schools. And we, the Vimukti Mission, have already started 3,500 anti-narcotic clubs in schools. And what we will do that, one excise official will be deputed for that each school. And what they will do that, they will go on to discuss the various issues with the students. They will discuss the issues with the children, the teachers. And one teachers will be the convener of that de-addiction club. The benefit is that if any issue is coming up in that school, they can easily discuss with the excise officials. They can, if recently, 2-3 days before, one incident had happened that when the excise official went to one school, at that time, some students, they shared that some shops near to that schools are selling the tobacco products or this type of drugs. And we confiscated that items and we closed that shops also. So if they are getting a lot of interaction with the school children. And another aspect is that the preventive approach has to be start from the family itself. First, it has to start from the family. One thing what I understood that the parents are not ready to accept that their children are using the drugs. Nobody will accept that. And some parents will say that, no, our children are not using, so it is not my cup of tea. But they are not understanding that that is very near to their doors. Today or tomorrow, it can come to their home also. So everybody has to take the responsibility. If it is not it is not there in their home, but they have to, as a community, we have to intervene in that matter. So the preventive approach, the training module, we are also doing the training program for PTA. The parents has to get a separate type of training program. The teachers has to get a separate type of programs. The children, the students has to get a separate type of program. So a common curriculum can't be adopted. It should be different for each sections. And one more aspect when I am talking about the enforcement activities, this NDPS Act, the division of NDPS Act as a small, medium, and commercial quantity, that itself is having some problem. The problem is that if a person has been caught with below 1 kilogram this contrabands, he will easily get the bail. What he will do? He will again go to the society and again he will do the same business. So another issue, another aspect, what the government, the Vimukti Mission is doing that this NDPS, I'm not that much familiar with that section 64A, I think if I'm correct. What we are doing that we are sending the children, these adolescents, people to de-addiction centers. Vimukti Mission is running 14 de-addiction centers across the Kerala. In each district, we are having one de-addiction center. And that de-addiction center is having 10 bed capacity. Approximate, I think last 2018, November only we started the de-addiction centers. Till now, as per the present statistics, approximately 14,000 people have taken the treatment. And now we want to ascertain that whether the efficacy is there or not. For that purpose, we are also planning to conduct one study. Because we have to, constantly we have to review their cases. Once they come to the de-addiction center and they will go out and whether they are again taking the drugs or not, that we don't know. For that purpose, what we are doing that we are going to depute. Now we contacted some of the universities and they told that the students who are doing the MSW sociology, they will do it as a project work. They will go to the society and they will do the interaction with these people, whether the treatment has been effective or not. And one more aspect what we are doing in Kerala is that sports activities. We have already conducted 4 marathons in across the Kerala. In 4 districts we have conducted. A lot of people have participated, a lot of students have participated, and frequently we have been conducting the sports activities. As per the National Action Plan for Drug Demand Reduction, we already started the de-addiction centers. The awareness program, we have taken approximately around 20,000 awareness classes during the last year. Daily, day by day, we have been taking the awareness classes in the schools, in the jails and various areas we are taking the classes. So awareness is the only option to reduce the demand, because demand has to be reduced from the society. If we are not reducing the demand from the society, the suppliers will be there. And another aspect is that, teachers. Teachers has to be sensitized in this matter. Because normally in the previous cases, whenever we are noticing that one student is using the substance, normally the teachers, what they will do that? Oh, he's a deviant. There is no need to give any attention to that person. But now the situation has changed. Now we are interacting with them, and some information is getting in that matter, suddenly it has to be reported to the excise department, and we are taking them to the de-addiction centers. We are keeping the privacy also. We are maintaining the secrecy also. We will not publish any type of this activity to the media or nothing, any type of print media. So whatever we could be able to do that, all the activities we are doing that, and we are bringing the celebrities also, the SCRT that Sir has already told that, SCRT already incorporated one curriculum in their textbooks. We proposed and they incorporated also. And in all the schools, what we are trying to do that, all the schools, these de-addiction centers will be there in all the schools, and the daily interaction will be there. We already started one mobile application also. In that mobile application, we can directly contact with the concerned teacher of that school. But if any untoward incident is there, they can directly contact us. So by saying this much of first, I am concluding my speech. Anyway, best of luck to you all. Thank you.
We must all thank Rajiv for a very absorbing presentation. Those among us who are interested in prevention must have listened with great admiration to the activities being undertaken by Vimukti. To start 3,500 anti-narcotic clubs in schools of Kerala, which approximately would cover about 2 million children, and then to have several de-addiction centers, about 14 de-addiction centers in every district of Kerala, that too in a short span of 2 years, is a major achievement. I am sure in the drug demand reduction, Dr. Misra will take note of this and further encourage the Kerala State Excise Department to continue the good work they are doing. Another aspect also highlighted by Rajiv was with regard to the family involvement, as well as to the use of modern digital technology in giving help to the affected persons. So thank you, Rajiv, for an excellent presentation. And now the time is already up. If the organizers permit, I think we can have 3 questions. If there is no time, we can dispense with the questions too, but it's for you to decide. 3 questions can be put to the panel participants. We'll take the questions. So it's open to the house. We'll have 3 questions.
Good morning. I am Lakshapati from Bangalore. I would have one clarification with Dr. Virendra Misra. Ji, that you have presented very comprehensive presentation. Thank you very much. But I have one clarification because our experience in the government, when you talk about the convergence, the various departments to collaborate, because a lot of time we feel that in different areas, the convergence really in practically there are difficulties, when they are coming together, because a lot of time in this meeting, convergence meeting, the subordinates of the officials of the different department come. Because of they are sending the lower level officials to the meetings and they are not able to take the decisions, so they will go back to their respective department and consult. So usually meeting after the meeting happens, but it doesn't move forward. So I just want your reflection on this.
Thank you for this question, because this is one thing probably perceived by everyone. If I would have been out of this government, so then even I would have thought the same way. But let me tell you, things are moving in a better way now. Recently, there were some meetings, held with all state nodal agencies, particularly from state, and it was taken by the secretary. And we found so many principal secretaries coming and attending that. So senior officers are coming and they are attending it. And at the same time, if you see the survey which was done, it was done by the health ministry, because NDDTC aims is part of health. So the survey of substance use which was done, it was done by health. The implementation agency is social justice. It is, many things are being done by NISD, and as I showed you, the stakeholders, they are all, most of them are government organizations, and all are different organizations. So there is convergence, and things are moving in a wonderful way right now. Thank you.
My question is to Mr. D. Rajiv. What is the role of health department and social justice in Vimukti mission? Is there an intersectoral coordination, or is a separate thing?
In the Vimukti mission, the representative from the health department is also there. The representative from the social justice department is also there. Now we are going to associate with actively we are going to associate with the social justice department also for starting the OIDC, outreach in-house development centers, and one more, peer-led intervention. These are the programs of the National Action Plan for Drug Demand Reduction. So definitely, without the participation of the health department and the social justice department, we can't work in a proper manner. Always we are associating with them.
Since this question was asked, I just like to reflect on this a bit, because as I understand, according to the allocation of business rules 1961 of the Government of India, demand reduction is under the purview of the Social Justice Department. And I cannot understand how Kerala, the enforcement department, is doing demand reduction. And I feel, personally I feel, and professionally also I feel, it has been counterproductive, because the same people who are supplying, who are marketing, who are promoting liquor are doing prevention, treatment, and other activities. That is a counterproductive thing. I feel no states in the country, except Kerala, allocation of business rule 1961 has been questioned. And in fact, when I was in Delhi for the action plan meeting, the secretary was referring one thing, which I like to openly share with the audience, because she was telling very clearly, the secretary has changed now, and the same secretary is there now in the Ministry of Social Justice. Because when they invite people from officials from all other states for the national committees and consultations, from Kerala it is how the excise is coming, and we have a lot of problem with that. And the Ministry of Social Justice has to answer for that. Thanks.
Sir, you told that the Secretary of Social Justice Department has pointed out in that way. Because last June 26, I have attended one seminar in Delhi on the day of the International Day Against Drugs. On that day, I gave one presentation about the Vimukti also there. And in that presentation, I think he was also there, Madam has uploaded that the Kerala government has taken this type of measures.
I'll just add on to something probably you said in Kerala, only the excise is doing. So let me clarify that. Yesterday I had a full day session with my RRTC, which is the regional center here. And in the last 100 days, they have conducted and community with the self-help groups. And that was an amazing work that they are doing. Besides that, as I said, we are working with SCRT also. So SCRT has sent us a proposal. They are also working in the schools. So similarly, the government of India is also working, and they are also conducting many programs. So it is not that only the excise is doing it. And second thing is, when they are doing it, doesn't mean the person who is selling the, liquor cannot do the prevention thing. No. That is the list in the market, but through sensitization, they can say what harm it can cause. The policy is different, but at the same time, the harm can always, the community can be told about the harm, so that there is limit. So we should applaud the job they are doing, that they have to collect the revenue, but at the same time, they're sensitizing the people that, okay, even if it is illicit thing, drugs, still you have to take care. So that is a very difficult task. So I applaud him. That's a wonderful thing that they're doing. It's a great thing to speak on a subject where they have to, it's a very dicey path, in fact. Thank you.
I think we can draw this session to a close. So thank you all for vigorous participation, very, very meticulous attention. Thank you all very much, and distinguished panelists. I am proud to have been a moderator of this panel. In fact, I did not need to moderate at all. Thank you all very much for your cooperation. Thank you.
Before the panelists and the moderator, Mr. Punnus, leaves, we want to give a small token of gifts. So can I ask Mr. Punnus to hand over the gift to the panelists, please? Thank you, sir, and sirs. We would move on to the next panel, and the next panel is a very esteemed panel like the first one. So to moderate the panel, I would introduce Mr. Sunil Kumar, Deputy Director, National Institute of Social Defense, NISD. Mr. Sunil began his career as faculty member of Utkal University in Odisha, India. He then joined the Government of India as Assistant Director of the Bureau of Drug Abuse Prevention. He has been closely working with the ministry for more than 25 years, including setting up the National Center for Drug Abuse Prevention, NCDAP, and the Regional Resource Training Centers, RRCTs. Mr. Sunil has also collaborated with the UNODC on numerous projects and has been national mentor for their bilateral projects on prevention of HIV transmission among drug users. He has been instrumental in coordinating all training activities, peer-led interventions, and drop-in centers for children all over India. Mr. Sunil has also been a key facilitator with the implementing agencies of the National Survey of the Magnitude of Substance Abuse and on the program development and implementation, including developing modules both short and long-term for service providers and other stakeholders. I just want to add a personal note. When I went to his office, I was immensely taken aback by his huge experience with which he received us. So Mr. Sunil, over to you.
Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, let me thank the organizers for giving me an opportunity to be the moderator for this particular session. All the nice words he has told about me, it's very nice of him. In fact, he is a person who is more accessible and lovable, and he's a person of a different personality. So it's very kind of him. and to say all good words about me, and I thank you once again. Unfortunately, or fortunately, whatever, good or bad, I mean, although I represent the ministry, we had for the last 2 days, even today, our director, one from the ministry and the director from NISD, both Mr. Virendra Mishra and Mr. Kagesh Garg, who have been sharing a lot on the program of the ministry for drug demand reduction and what is the role of NISD. So I think I'm hardly left with any kind of information or ideas, but still I feel like sharing a few things before I could start off. I invite the eminent speakers, because the topic as such is very vital, very important in the present context when we talk about communities and civil society. This particular topic is very relevant in the sense even for our ministry, because our ministry, the basic premise in which the program starts off is to have a kind of a community-based approach. And that when we talk about community-based approach, the best way to reach to the communities is through civil societies. So I thought maybe this would be the appropriate session where all the participants, the eminent panelists would be speaking on it, both from the international perspective as well as the national and the local level, so that it will be a wonderful discussion, and followed by it, we'll have further questions and answers. To start with, I would invite the panelists. I would first invite, let me repeat again, the topic for the panel discussion for today is on role of communities and civil societies in creating safe. This is a very interesting concept which they are coming up, and I'm sure we would like to listen about it. That is substance use for free environment, substance abuse for free environment. This is what it is? Free environment. So let's hear more about it, and I would first request to start with Mr. Esbon Hornberg. He's the international president for the World Federation Against Drugs. Mr. Esbon has previously served as the executive director of IOGT International and as the chairperson of the Vienna NGO Committee on Drugs. He was also the chair of the Civil Society Task Force on Drugs. He was Secretary General, Senior Advisor of International Institute of IOGT NTO movement. He was also secretary in the civil society group working with WHO and UNODC on the project Global Initiative 1991 to 1996, especially targeting affected and vulnerable communities and street children. Before working with international and developmental issues, he spent 17 years as a civil servant in the sectors of education, social welfare, and community administration. I now invite, and welcome, sir, welcome, and thank you for coming. A big applause, please. I would invite the second speaker, Mr. Billy Batware, Drug and Crime Prevention Consultant, UNODC. Mr. Billy Batware is a consultant of UNODC responsible for the civil society team's work related on the Commission on Crime Prevention and Criminal Justice, the Commission on Narcotic Drugs, the United Nations Convention Against Transnational Organized Crime. He is the founder of United for Education and Sustainable Futures, UESF, whose flagship project is Youth Education Ambassadors, YEA. He's also the co-founder of the Regional Academy on the United Nations, RON, founder of International Security and Conflict Analysis Network, a visiting lecturer of international conflicts and development, and a certified trainer in international security. Billy is currently pursuing his MPhil research with a focus on institutional cooperation of the United Nations agencies. In his spare time, Billy works to educate and empower young people and advocate for better human rights, equitable development, and awareness about sustainable development. Thank you, Mr. Billy. Of course, the chief organizer of this, the main person who has been working in the grassroots, the speaker number 3, Ms. Diana Joseph. She's the director, Project Venda. I hope you all would repeat the word Venda. Venda, most of the students, I hope all of you know. All the youth, all the students, Venda. Can you say Venda? What is the purpose of this project? No to drugs, okay. So we have the director with us, Ms. Diana Joseph. I find it interesting because this particular concept of Venda is something very different. The managing trust of the Fourth Way Foundation, Diana Joseph, believes in making a difference in lives through equality, inclusiveness, safety, and empowerment. An anti-drug crusader, a human rights advocate, and an equality activist, she has been instrumental in initiating various community-based programs that helps create a substance abuse-free environment for children, provide equal opportunities for people with disabilities, protect the girl child, and ensure education to everyone. Diana Joseph, who has more than 10 years of experience in working with international organizations, including the UNESCO, was an invited speaker of the United Nations General Assembly, UNGA, on on narcotics and drugs held at Vienna in September 2018. An avid researcher who has co-authored several articles in journals and presented papers at international forums, Diana Joseph has completed her advanced management program, corporate social responsibility. Very important when it. I welcome you, Diana, and I request now Mr. Onberg to come and share his.
I learn, the less I understand, for sure. You have so much culture, you have so much competence, you are so skilled. You are so skilled that when I was listening to CC this morning, I decided to drop my speech. Because whatever he said was in my notes as well. This is how you are going to act. So what can I do? I'm standing here. This is my job. I'm standing in conferences and so on. It's a terrible job to sit and try to be awake during the days, listening to people, listening to without going to field trips, without meeting the children, without meeting the spouses, without meeting communities, I will not survive, for sure. So if I just do this, I will quit tomorrow. I have been young, yes, believe it or not, yes. I have been 28. And when I was 28, I was working with development, and I continued to do this. I continued as a volunteer, I continued as executive director. That's, well, executive director. That's good. And I've been international president. Even better, maybe. I don't know. But the best thing, as I said, is when I can sit there and see what the local people are doing, because they are doing some real work. It could be prevention. It could be empowerment of women's group. It could be when they are doing social services. That's what we are doing when it comes to civil society. And we have seen it, the bridge between government and communities. We are the ones who are doing it, more or less. I have been together with Billy and a number of other peoples in Vienna. I have been listening to Kofi Annan, and I have been listening to other people, very important people, talking about the situation. I have been listening to the Iran representative telling that, well, they don't accept civil society. At least this is what they try to give as a message. But I was invited to Iran, and what could I see? The work in Iran is done by civil society. The government puts the money into civil society to do the work. So this is where we are. And instead of doing what I was prepared to do, I will take you through my life a little bit, what I have done on different levels. Because civil society is, of course, important on all levels. When it comes to the local level, you are struggling with the work. What you are doing to get funding for that, and to see the improvement of the failures or loopholes or whatever. On the national level, you are struggling with the government. The government that sometimes sees civil society as a threat, something that should be, well, keep them there. Don't talk too much about them. We have our civil servants who can do the work, but civil society always criticizes us. But come with, as the governor said the first day, come with the constructive methods, please. And we need to do that. On the regional base, in Europe, for example, it's more or less the same as the UN level. What can you do there? You have to talk with governments. You have to talk with representatives, diplomats, and so on. You need to use a language that they understand. And that's not the language you are using when you are talking to the abused women who has domestic violence in the... I didn't believe that there was domestic violence in India until in 1994 when I was in a big meeting in Sweden. And during the last meal, I was sitting with 6 Indian women. The male was sitting over there. They were drinking because they were serving alcohol in this dinner as well. I was sitting with those who are not drinking alcohol. A little bit female. Yeah. But anyway, and then we discussed what is the problem in your village in? Well, that's domestic violence. Domestic violence, I found it in Vietnam. The Vietnamese guys, they are very good soldiers, but they are terrible husbands. This is what they say. So this is what I meet when I'm in the field. And how do you give that to an audience? I'm an outsider, often. When I come somewhere, they see me as someone who is a guest, who is just passing by. 1 day, 2 days, or something. I try to learn. I really try to learn. Not the language, because I cannot understand, that's no use. But how do you eat? How do you treat your family? How do you go to school? Do you have to pay? Do you have to give bribes to get to school, to hospitals, or whatever? I like to know that, so I can understand. I do believe. This is what I do. I try to see if there is a possibility to connect something, to help on that level in building the real situation. And then judge what's going on, what champions, as we say. Because we need champions. You have a number of them here. And went ahead with last night. And this is a project as well as I have seen sometimes. Well, coming to what I would like to say. Way back when I was a little bit younger, I was invited to Gambia in West Africa. Because we are doing development work. It's not only talking about drugs and alcohol, empowerment of women's group. That was what we were doing in Kerawan, in the part of Gambia. Gambia is a very, very small country, smaller than Cochin. And We were there, and the women were so happy. And in the night, they arranged a dance. The male, they disappeared. The guys disappeared. So we were 3 foreigners, outsiders, together with the women's group who had children. The grandmothers had the children, the granddaughter or grandson on the back. And they were playing drums, and we were dancing. And I felt that, well, this is where we were born. Actually, it was such a feeling. And then, suddenly, the electricity was gone. It was totally black out there. And then they came with small lights and a living hen. They would like me as a representative from the outsiders, from the donors, who had given them the possibility to work for small employment inside their village, to encourage them to do something for the children. I had a living hen, 11 o'clock in the evening, in the rural areas of Gambia. What to do with that? This will give food for a family for a couple of days, so it's so important. The next thing was when we came to the northern part of Sri Lanka, where peninsula close to Jaffna. And there we were building hospitals, or not hospital, but some kind of medical treatment, library, women's center, child care, but also fisheries for the guys to go out fishing on the water between India and Sri Lanka and so on. And I learned that you can do local work there, but you should not do the work. You should teach a little bit, but you should find the people in the village who could be the champions in the coming years. The next event I would like to tell you, that's a number of years later. I was in East Africa, in Kenya, in Nairobi, and I was asked to come to a slum area, 800,000 people, the whole population of Cochin, inside a slum. What did they do there? They were playing football. And I saw the 2 guys, and it's like this, you know. When I saw what they did in Matari slum, those who wanted to play, they needed to do social work. If they wanted to be in the game, they needed to do some social work. To clean the area around their houses, to train younger boys and girls, and so on. And this was something that really came into my mind. How can we use this? Because you don't need so much equipment. You just need to organize, and you need to find the champions. We brought it to Tanzania, the neighboring country, where we started in a small scale to have football teams. And we tried to give them information about alcohol and drugs, about sex education, because so many young girls in the villages were pregnant. So we needed to do something about that as well. And can you imagine, in 2 years, we had what we call the Sober Super Cup on the national arena in Dar es Salaam, with mixed teams where boys and girls played together. This was impossible from the beginning, but together with the community and together with those committed champions, we did it. And a couple of years later, they had a national female team, and the goalkeeper came from our team. That was really something. And then you can understand, you can go back to Sweden, you can sit in meetings like this, you can sit and talk about funding. That's nothing when you have this input into your life. Last input I had was actually in Thailand, and some of the people here was working with this. It was on the borderline between Thailand and Myanmar, where there was a number of people who had fled the poverty and the repression in one country, coming to Thailand without citizenship, and how to deal with that. How to get them the possibility to come into a community, into a nation or something like that. And to listen to those people and to see how they was working with community. And once again, women's groups, so important in this region, so important on the global level. They could make a change. And I was listening to young girls, 15 years old, with dreams. And I compare their dreams to what I can hear back in Sweden. Because in Sweden, they would like to be photo models, stars, something like this. When you're listening to children in this area, in Africa, they would like to do something for their parents, for the community, for the society. They would like to be teachers. They would like to be doctors. They would like to contribute. You have so much competence. You have so much skills. You have so much commitments out there. So please, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be here and to see Project Venda and to listen to what you have done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hornberg. It is very nice of you to share the wide experience globally, all over, wherever you have been there, and how, I mean, the ultimate purpose of his sharing was mostly to tell how everybody has got their own talents which are latent and which has to be manifested and which has to be empowered. And this is something which we really have to work, and the motto of empowering communities, the motto of empowering individuals in a community is something which is very important. And thank you, Mr. Hornberg, for this. Now I request Mr. Billy to come over and share his views.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. It's always very difficult. I think I would have wanted to ask you to go first before Esbjørn, because it's quite difficult to make a meaningful contribution after this life of experience that you just gave. And thinking about what you've just done, I'm thinking maybe I should change my story, but I'm not sure whether I'm prepared to improvise as much as you have done. So I think I'm going to stick with my presentation, but and hope that I can make a contribution as well. My life story would probably also been a little bit interesting to share, but I stick to the presentation. No, that's all right. First, before I start, may I ask, well, first let me say thanks so much once again to Project Venda for having me here, for having United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, to WFAD, of course, for co-organizing this. And as UNODC, we are very proud to being part of this very important conference. And as some of the speakers already mentioned this morning, I'm extremely happy that there are so many young people here today. And I would like to ask the young people a favor, because I would actually like to see how it looks like to have so many young people in the audience. May I ask you to stand up so that people can actually see that you're here, the young people, especially those who came today, but if you've been here for the last few days as well, please stand up. Oh, that's incredible. That's really, really amazing. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you very much for being here. And I think, I mean, just maybe there's a gentleman earlier today who said that students, all of you are students, right, I think? Okay. There's a gentleman this morning who said that students are citizens of tomorrow. And I made this point the other day as well. You know, I respect his opinion on that, but I respectively disagree, actually, on that particular notion. I think the students are also the citizens of today, right? The students are the citizens of today, because I think if you look at Project Vendor, for instance, the stories we heard yesterday, a lot of these are being realized. It could not be realized without the support of students. So actually, you are making incredible contributions, and thank you so much for doing that. So what can I contribute to this particular event? And of course, it's very much in line also with what I just mentioned, the importance of young people and schools. And there, I wanted just to share a little bit about what we as UNODC are doing. And I wanted to start with this particular slide. There's listening, but there's a word missing on my slide. I'm not sure why I don't have it on my slide. But I think it should be parenting or something like that. Listening. I think if we think about the topic of this session, which is the role of civil society and communities in creating safe, substance abuse-free environment, I think, right? I think we're talking about communities, we're talking about societies, but I think we actually have to go very, very much at the very core of societies and communities and look at families, right? Because I think families are the first starting point when we're talking about communities and what actually can happen within the communities, especially when it comes to substance abuse. So what we are doing at UNODC, again, focusing on families, is to say, as a parent, probably the first step, the first thing you have to do is to listen to your children, right? A number of speakers also mentioned this a little bit in the last 2 days, that the messages that we send to the children and the communication we have with them is very, very important, right? So, and sometimes we don't spend sufficient time to listening to the needs of the children and the young people, because we quite often, as adults, as older generation, actually we think that we probably know best what is good for the children and the younger communities. I think so we should take a step back and say we listen first to what they have to say, to what their needs are, and then we plan interventions accordingly. And this listen first, we actually use it for a convention that we, for the International Day Against Drug Abuse. A lot of you are probably familiar with this. A lot of NGOs use this as well to campaign within schools, within communities on the issue of drugs. And particularly what this campaign helps us to do is that we have developed a number of fact sheets that gives you as a parent or as a policymaker or as a teacher or as a health worker some of the key information about drug use and young people. And you can use that in your work when you work with this particular constituency. And there, I mean, if you would like to get more information about that, I put a link there so that you can go directly and look at what it does. So, for example, as I mentioned, parents have the most influence in helping their children grow happy. If the family does not provide a happy environment, children are not going to be happy, and they're most likely going to end up in an environment that is conducive for them, for instance, to start using illicit drugs, for example. So UNODC, the way that at least we engage communities at different levels, and of course, we work very much on family levels. We work in schools, communities, workplaces, and health sector places. And at each of one of those levels, of course, we provide different interventions, right? So as I mentioned, for example, on family, which is the level that I'm going to focus my presentation on, we give a lot of parental and infancy support to parents in order to know how to, not to teach them how to parent, but really much to make sure that they understand how to better communicate with their children at the early stage. Parenting skills, yes, of course, and I was very happy to hear, for example, from the gentleman from Sweden, Frederick, right? Talking about some of the measures that they have in place, for example, in terms of if you're a parent and you are a drug addict parent, that the government actually has a responsibility, probably not to teach you how to parent, but actually in the interest of the child to make sure that there's a service that's provided to the child especially, but also to the family in the interest of the entire family. So we do more or less similar things at the UNODC with families. Of course, we don't take children away from parents. Like this is a government's job. We don't do this at UNODC. No, we don't do that. So family is key here. And some of the things that we are doing in the context of what we call family skills, which is family skills are pretty much programs that aim to strengthen family protective factors such as communication, as I mentioned, trust. Trust is very important between the parents and their children. Problem-solving skills and conflict resolution. Right. Okay. Conflict resolution. What does that actually have to do with drug abuse? Conflict resolution. Can anybody tell me, the young people, conflict resolution? Is this drug abuse? Is it a conflict? Young people, you think this is a conflict? The young people. Yes, it is a conflict. Of course it's a conflict. It's social conflict, right, within the families. When there's a disagreement, what is a conflict? It's just a disagreement between two stakeholders or two individuals, two key actors. But it could also be a disagreement within yourself. So, of course, building trust and providing skills on conflict resolution is very, very important here. But what it does is it includes opportunities for parents and children to spend positive time together. In this day and age, it's extremely important that parents actually find time to spend with their children. I mean, I know we're all busy. You know, we're all on missions all the time. I mean, SBON is on the road all the time. All of us are extremely busy, but it's very, very important, obviously, in bringing up of a child to make sure that parents actually find time to spend with their children. But it focuses on relationships and behavioral change and practices. So this is where really the focus goes on what kind of relationships parents can build with their children and what kind of behaviors that they can actually develop. This program is actually implemented in many, many different countries, not in India yet, right? I say yet. I have a colleague of mine also from our New Delhi office. We're working on this. Each country is different. Of course, conditions in the country determine whether we actually implement these programs in the countries or not. Conditions have to be conducive for us to do that. We have to have sufficient partnership within the local context. So we're not in India yet, but we're in many different countries, as you can see there. But in doing our work on that particular front, we have observed a number of obstacles. So for example, we have observed that in a lot of communities we have worked on, there are different ways that families understand this. So for example, our families do not like to discuss drugs. Okay, is it the case in India? How is it like? Do your parents talk to you about drugs? There you go. They don't talk to you about drugs. So obviously it depends on the context, right? In my country, for example, I come from Rwanda originally. Several years ago, you could not talk about, sexual behavior with younger girls in the communities. It's not. It wasn't just something you can practice. It's not something that you do according to our culture. So obviously this is a thing in India as well. You don't talk about drugs. Families also are different than, our families are different than families where evidence is generated. Okay? Where is the evidence on addressing the war drug problem generated? Is it in India? Probably not, okay? I mean, we see, of course, a lot of work that is Project Vendor is doing, a lot of other international NGOs here in India, in Sri Lanka, and neighboring countries are doing. You're trying to get there, right? You're trying to get there to kind of generate country-specific, region-specific evidence. But most of the evidence that we have is actually coming from different other places, right? International instruments which are probably agreed upon, of course, most probably also with your country's consent, but probably in Vienna, in Geneva, in New York, and so on and so forth. So they quite often do not resonate with the local context. So one of those programs that we're implementing is so-called the Strong Family Program, which gives skills for families in humanitarian challenges. Okay, the countries that you saw on that particular map, you could read a lot. I mean, at least if I go very quickly back to this map, you could see that a lot of these countries are countries that are actually in conflict, right? So that's why most of our interventions on a Strong Family Program is actually focusing on these particular families that are in conflict. It aims to improve parenting skills, child well-being, but also for caregivers. We provide it for caregivers, but also we give different sessions. I mean, depending whether it's a family or whether it's children, whether it's a family, parents only, or whether it's a whole family, we provide different services here. So, in terms of specifically how does that work? So for caregivers, for instance, we provide, we explore parents' challenges that they face in their own communities. Is it poverty? Is it in their own families? We provide also skills to develop ways to better deal with stress, which can of course be caused by many different factors. The value of using both love and limits, yeah? There are always limits. I mean, parents can love you as much as they want, but there are always limits. So obviously, you know, when your parent is a little bit strict on you on a number of things, it's not because they do not love you. It's because perhaps you've gone out of limits as to what you can do. And sometimes as young people, I've been there, so where we all have been young people. Young people take a lot of risks. That's why, I mean, we can do a lot of things because you especially, because we take a lot of risks. And sometimes those risks, they kind of go over the limits, and parents have to be able to bring you back. For children, we teach them how to deal with stress as well within the families, but also to explore rules and responsibilities. Again, a lot of role models that we have seen in this conference, I see them everywhere. I travel, as Bjorn mentioned the other day, Greta, this lady who is campaigning for environment. I mean, there are many other young people who are doing the same on different other topics. So obviously, we kind of also help them to identify what they can do in their communities. And with family sessions, we provide practice, positive communication, and so on and so forth. Okay, so what have we seen? Okay, we have implemented this program in many different countries, and what we can say is that it's actually working, right? It works. It works whether it's for girls and boys, it works the same. You can see, for instance, on this particular graph, from the first time that we provide this service to the third time we provide service, how the curve is going down, right? So this is, I mean, the lower the curve goes, the less that the people that we have provided these services for have then continued to use drugs or substances, or let's say, yeah, kind of are on the path to quit using illicit drugs. So here we say families are at the forefront, right? When you talk about war, the soldiers, the police are at the forefront. I mean, we talked about law enforcement being at the forefront of demand, supply reduction of drugs. Here, in this particular context, family at the forefront, because everything starts within the family. That means strong and effective interventions also must start within the families. Some of the inspirational, maybe to just conclude, we have seen that these family skills, they work, right? They work. We actually have developed them as open sources, which means that they can be used quite easily. We have a lot of trained people. We've been implementing this for many, many years. So actually, we have developed a wealth of trained people who actually do this very, very effectively. Again, it could be an extensive program. It could also be a light session. And yeah, we also have seen that they can help reach many families in need. And yeah, but we cannot do it alone, right? We cannot do it alone. We always need help. We always need civil society organizations to be there to help us reach the communities. But we also need you young people, especially, to come on board on this, right? Because we can have as many good ideas, as many good projects, or as many good policies as we want. If you are not keen on joining those initiatives, we're not going to be successful. So obviously we need your help, we need parents' help, but we need mostly the help of young people to be on board on this. For more information on this, we have a colleague of mine who is sitting in Vienna, who has actually been part of the team that has developed this program, can be contacted. Of course, you can contact me as well, but he's in a much, much better position because he's developed this program and he's been one of the trainers to implement it. And with that, I thank you so much again, and really looking forward to having a nice conversation with you, especially the young people.
Thank you, Mr. Billy. It was a wonderful, a very elucidated information of your experience on this family program, and how at various levels, the parents, the families, the policymakers, all at various levels, how they have been involved and what are the skills that are involved. This has been shared, and I'm sure that this has brought about good results in the various countries which you have been working with. We were given 15 minutes late, so we can continue for the next 15 minutes. So at the far end of the program, of this particular panel, I request Dana Joseph to share her views. Yes? You have anything? Because this experience is more important, being a local, and she has been trying, doing this, and mostly the public-private partnership and the CSR, how they're involved, how the communities are brought together, and how best the student you have been, we can see here in this particular auditorium, how the students have come and participated. So in that regard, I would request Dana to share her experience. Please come.
Thank you. I'll just sit here, and as the job of the organizer also, so I'll have to keep a bit on time. So I'll keep it quick because I belong to Kerala, and the last 2 days, the audience here have been connecting with me on our project. Particularly what Espion and Billy has been trying to do is talk to the youngsters gathered today, okay? The primary message was to all youngsters, and it is an effort for Vanda to bring students from across 14 districts. All districts of Kerala have been represented in this hall. And taking the permission of my co-panelists and everybody else in the room, I'll also mix a little bit of the local language in between to keep my audience awake, the youngsters awake. Is that okay? Is that okay? Okay. Okay, thank you. I've got both their permissions. Vanda. Okay. I'm particularly speaking to the 100-odd youth in this room. Okay, and what we are trying to do here, in the last session you saw enforcement, you saw the police, you saw the criminal justice system, trying to tell you what it is to run the program at a country level, at a state level, and try and implement it across in a human rights angle, trying to be just across these job roles that they hold. It's not easy. When you're talking narcotics and drugs, implementation and incarceration and the criminal system itself is a huge process. Like the the previous panelists mentioned, we fear that in the coming few years, we will have more people in prison, more youth in prison than we have outside, because of the kind of numbers we are already gathering. Chumma varayalla. നമ്മുടെ നാട്ടിൽ prevalence rate, you know what a prevalence rate is? 100 പിള്ളേരുടെ ഇടയിൽ ഞങ്ങൾ ക്ലാസ് എടുക്കുകയാണെങ്കിൽ we have 10 children who come forward and say we need help. കോളേജ് ലെവലിൽ കയറുമ്പോൾ നിങ്ങളൊരു നമ്പർ പറഞ്ഞു 100 പിള്ളേരുടെ ഇടയിൽ if we were to come and take classes on drugs and say there's counseling available outside, counselors are outside, what is the kind of numbers out of 100 that will come for counseling? Just give me a para. 25%. It's coming from the students. And you are right. From what we understand, school level it's 10%, and if I were to come to a college or a university and offer my services for counseling, we could easily get 20 to 25% of youngsters coming and saying, help us. Help us. And those kind of numbers we're not going to be able to deal. No judicial system, no hospital system, no care system can handle those numbers. And if those numbers are to be dealt with, prevention is the only way forward. And what is prevention? What is prevention? Do you all understand these terms? Prevention is CC trying to keep the 90% who have not even tried this thing away from it. The 10% itself is too much to handle. Because we're a large country, and the kind of services we have will never match to the kind of trouble that's going to be created through narcotics. So the best way to is keep them away, because there is no sense in doing this thing. So I'm going to give you 3 simple examples of what you youth can do to make it a better place. Okay? And this is very key secrets to Vanda. They ask us, why is Vanda so successful? Simply because we work with the youth and the youngsters to be communicating to youngsters. This is our core secret. We are not judicial officers, excise officers standing in your classes and taking sessions on drugs. We don't give any information about drugs at all. All we even do in our school classes is talk about gateways. Gateways and gateways is basically alcohol, tobacco, and other sniffing products. These are the only things we talk about in school, because drugs, you all know. What is Punjabi, you know, what's cocaine, what's heroin, everybody knows. We're not going to give you information on what it does. So what we simply do is find the right youngster who can take a stand, understand why he should be saying this, and with conviction, talk to the others. This is all we do at Venda. It's not rocket science. And I'm going to give you 3 key clues of how we successfully do it as a community. This section is about enabling communities to be proactive in making substance-free, abuse-free environment. Safe environments. Substance abuse-free environments. It's an open term by Venda. All of you should go back and start safe programs in your colleges. We have no copyright on that word at all. Safe environments is what we all need to create. 3 simple things. 1, we have to look at something called the Icelandic model, which we are all talking about here for the last 2 days. There are countries across the world, and we have 28 countries represented in this hall here, who have done something credible in their own right to say they're fighting this. It's a huge problem across the globe. And one of those models that we at Venda have been propagating is the Icelandic model. Icelandic model, where's Iceland? Nariyamo? Oribidilla. Map kandittundo? You're sitting in a UNODC conference. You know where's Iceland? Chuma. Okay. So go and find out where Iceland is on the map and how tiny it is. Ningada Kochi Keralathinte 1/3 or 1/4 angandulla somehow. They have been able to implement, they had youngsters who would use drugs, alcohol and tobacco. I'm not even giving you those percentages because we'll be very encouraged. But they have been able to fight this and bring those numbers and move the trajectory and bring it as low as less than 5% in a couple of years. It's taken a good decade for them to fight it. You all go and study this model. As youngsters, you have to go back and not listen to all those funny, half-edited, paadi kallam parayana videos on why should we legalize marijuana, cannabis. Don't look at all those rubbish. It's all half-edited, half-truths. Okay? And don't even argue on those things that you hear online. It's just information that you really don't need. Go and look at the right models, look at Iceland, look what they've done, look what youngsters have done to change that story. Simply, they have been proactive. 8 o'clock, they have a curfew, families and parents come out, and they're actually playing the role of the police and the cops and sending their youngsters back home. Simple things, which we as a community have always been doing. And now it's become a fancy thing for us to hang around in the nights and use all these substances, and when the cops come by, we're like, don't know what to do, and they also don't know what to do with youngsters because they have no intent to spoil your lives. And they'll say, go home. And we're doing the same thing again and again and again. And in less than 2-3 months, we're all addicts. Yes or no? Everybody's shaking your heads. Okay, so what we do is look at the Icelandic model and find out what they've done right. And in Kerala, in the little state of Kerala, we can change the story. Given a good decade, we'll be an example of a little state in this massive country who's changed the story. We are next to Punjab. Ketitundo. Yeah, we're the next. We're second to Punjab. No, kya nahi parayne. Satya onda, but we don't have those numbers to authenticate it. Conveniently, we don't even give out those numbers because we don't want to make that claim. But the truth is, as young and youth Kerala, we are in threat. That you all have to agree. And we don't want the story to look like Punjab. Go and Google and see what's happening in Punjab. Videos are going to To imagine Kerala like that in the next 5 years as a sleeping Punjab, a sleeping youth, we don't want that. We can take charge of the story. So one is that. Two, as a community, our schools are understaffed in terms of the PT sir, Louis sir, are you here? So you will, after this conference, you will go and talk to that man. Can you stand up, please? Okay, he's the PT marshal in one of the schools here. He's fighting a vain fight, trying to bring one physical trainer into every school. Can you believe none of our schools, or half of, or more than 70% of our schools don't have physical training teachers? Kettundo. Do you know about it? Okay, he's fighting a fight, okay, where we are asking for one physical trainer, one sports teacher in every school. Now we cannot fund it. The government is finding it very difficult. It's a long process to get all of that done. We need youngsters who play football, who can play matches, who know the basic rules of the game, are willing to actually go out and play instead of sitting on your phones and doing all illegal stuff, to go out and help teachers like this across in all your states. Go to those schools. Teachers will give you permission. Find these students, because these students also don't know what to do after 4 o'clock in the evening. They're all going to sit down and find those convenient phone. You know what they're doing? They're watching pornography. Okay? Our youngsters are all sitting in groups and watching pornography. Get them off. Get them onto the ground. You're like youth. You all can actually bring children out of the schools, get onto the grounds and play some games. I wonder if you all do. Physical exercise undo. Surprisingly, in the areas we work, we have girls who play football, and we have 50% of girls who love to play football. In a state in Kerala where they don't encourage football for girls. Any football player, girl football player in this room? We won't find one. But in the community that I work, we have 50% of girls who play football. So the example is that PT teacher here, please go find out what the problems in our schools is, why we don't have physical training teachers, and all of you who can move a leg and kick a ball, get all the youngsters out of schools, form your little groups in your districts, get them to play. Alternative pursuits is our second key success program. Venda has nothing as a patent or content that we want to hoard. We want to change the story, and we're giving it free to you. Second is what? You're going to do the alternative pursuits program in all your schools and colleges. What is alternative pursuits? Get them into playing ball or whatever they like in terms of a game or a sport. Get them into art, theatre and music, something that will keep them away from all these substances and unnecessary behaviors. Second, simple 3 rules. We are going to work with the jurisdiction, the enforcement, and the criminal justice system. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to be police. Police academy, I don't know how successful it is, but we wish them all success. But I think we can do, as common citizens, something very simple. 100 meters around your educational institution. Okay, this is very specific to India and Kerala. COPTA na parayunna act undu. You know, have you heard of it? COTPA. Cigarette and Other Tobacco Products Act. Go and read it. That is Section 6 na parayunna oru sambhavam undu. Section 6 of the COTPA Act. Read it carefully. It says 100 meters around your school or educational institutions, nobody can sell anything that is related to cigarette, tobacco, alcohol, or any other substances. Let's enforce that very simply. Nobody is going to come and take your neck out for it. Nobody is going to do it. We are citizens. We have a right to protect our young. We are not fighting a mafia. We are not doing anything with the industry. We're just trying to say, keep our children safe. I think youngsters, are you all good game for this? We call it officially at Venda the SAFE audit, Substance Abuse Free Audit, Environment Audit. That's process it is a 2-page simple tick box kind of stuff to ensure that your environments are substance abuse free. We will make it online in a few months. We're just piloting it. In a few months, we'll have it online for you so you can download. And it's just 2 pages of tick boxes to ensure that your neighborhood is substance abuse free. If you guys as a little army can do these things, I think we will change the story in a couple of years. Do you trust me to it? Can we do it? We can actually do it, and that's why you're invited. You're actually sharing stage with people who've been fighting this at the UN in their own countries, at the country level, at the policy level. Last 2 days, we've been trying to discuss that on how to make our countries be able to do something that is productive in terms of fighting this. And we've all come to a consensus that without the youngsters, this battle is vain. This journey doesn't go forward because you guys have to know why we're doing this and join this journey. In Kerala, I think we have a story, and I've seen the most beautiful youngsters because, like CC said, the team at Vanda is average age and the team in there. 28 years old. We have people who finish aeronautical engineering to MCA, MBAs, who put aside 2-3 years of their career to join Vanda because they believe in the mission. They're all in that t-shirt. They're already going to. Can you put your hands up, guys? You inside, if you put 10, nobody will know. Come out and put your hands up. Yeah, see, all of them in these t-shirts. Meet them outside. Talk to them, ask them what they do. They have all these simple stories and keys for you to do this back in your own environments. Get inspired. Let's change the story. So I'm not going to talk much. We don't have time. I'm closing on time, I suppose. We are here. Vanda is here, but you don't get these people. These are very important people. You're sitting with a lot of very important people. Take the time. Talk to them. That's why you're invited, and you've been selected. Do you know you've been selected to sit here? You know how many colleges across Kerala? Can we invite everybody here? No. We've carefully selected your college. We've requested your principal and headmaster to send 2 proactive people who we think will understand this and not go back and talk about cannabis and legalization and marijuana and all of that. We've been very carefully selected to sit in this room to go back and change the story. We're very glad you accepted the invitation. We are very glad you're here, but we as Vanda are around, and all your officers and police officers and all of them are around for you to access. But the people that you see, different colored skin and from other countries, are not going to be here. So make the best of trying to interact with them, meeting them, talking to them, and making the best of this next 3-4 hours. Okay? This is my humble request. So welcome to the conference. We have just 3-4 hours to go. Make the best of it. And I hope I've given you the key secret to Vanda. Will you remember it if I ask you in an hour? Edithito? I suppose. So thank you. Thank you. And half of it, I wonder if you understood.
Thank you, Diana, for your wonderful advice, or whatever you call it, or not, what do you, facilitating or whatever it is. See, how many of you have come yesterday for the dance? No, they're not been invited. Okay. Any of the whole lot of youngsters have come, and I'm sure none of them had any kind of. Usually, when we talk of dance, we talk of drinks, we talk of reefers, all that kind of thing. But yesterday, the dance was without all this, and still people enjoyed. So what I would like to say here is that what Dana was talking about is how best you can engage yourself more positively rather than falling in trap into all these drugs. So let's hope that since all of you have been here listening to various issues on drugs, take a vow and at your respective schools or colleges, try to make the substance abuse free zones, free zone schools or free zone colleges. And I wish you all the best. I thank once again all the panelists. I mean, about 2 to 3 questions. If you'll have anybody, questions to Mr. Hornberg or Mr. Billy, please go ahead. The participants, the delegates who have come abroad or within the country, if they would like to ask a few questions, kindly make 2 questions. Any questions? Or feeling hungry, maybe. Right then. Thank you. Thanks for this. Thanks to all of you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Sunil, we just want to pass on a small token of appreciation from our side. We'll quickly move into the next panel. Again, a very interesting panel because, like we were discussing, media and tourism has a very important role to play in keeping our communities safe. So I invite Reverend Dr. Father Kuriakos Augustine to come on stage to moderate the panel. He is the former member of the Juvenile Justice Board of Ernakulam. Reverend Father Kuriakos Augustine belongs to the Religious Institute of Salesians of Don Bosco. He worked among street children and youth who are at risk for over 3 decades, involved in their education and rehabilitation. The government of Kerala, in a Gazette notification in 2009, appointed Father Kuriakos Augustine as a member of the Juvenile Justice Board for the district of Ernakulam. He continued to serve the board for over 2 terms, and he has served in the board for over 9 years. He's also served as Director Childline, Ernakulam District, and Executive Director of Don Bosco Sneha Bhavan projects in Kochi from 2008 to 11. He's currently involved in counseling. He is a counselor, trainer for counselors, training faculty and academic mentors in colleges, education and rehabilitation of youth at risk. He is a member of the Academic Council in Psychology and trainer in life skills and other psychosocial themes, and a trainer for stakeholders in social justice sector like police personnel and caretakers. He is also involved at the national level in the youth at risk sector to draft child policies. And more importantly, Father has been guiding us and helping us. And anytime we are at need or we need some guidance or suggestion, we ask him, and he is always eager to help us. So Father Kuriakos, the stage is yours.
Good afternoon. The biological clock is ticking, and I'm sure hunger is gnawing at our tummies. But we have a lot of food for thought waiting also from very interesting speakers on the panel. So I would like to invite our 3 panelists for the 3rd session, Dr. K. Ambadi, Mr. Jose Dominic, and Ms. Sudha Nambudiri. Please do come on stage. I would be introducing each of the speakers separately because each one is so special, and I want you to register who they are. They are already well known in the scene in Kerala, but to the larger audience. May I introduce Dr. K. Ambadi first, because he happens to be the first speaker of this session. Dr. K. Ambadi has an IAS, Indian Information Service, and he was the former MD, Managing Director of Information and Public Relations Department, Government of Kerala. And in this capacity, he has developed an innovative campaign strategy to reach specific target groups with the help of new media, especially during times of rare disease outbreaks in Kerala and also national tragedies. He was also director of Subodham, a very innovative project which he put together aimed at preventing alcohol and substance abuse. The main mandate was to chart out a scientifically and culturally acceptable program for addressing the rising menace of alcohol and substance abuse in Kerala. In a short span of time, he had designed a state-of-the-art project, the implementation plan for Kerala, and the same was presented at Subodham Icon in 2016, an international conference organized by Subodham under the leadership of Dr. K. Ambadi. And the World Health Expert Group, which he chaired that time, discussed the project report in detail, and the findings and the project itself was, with inputs from the expert group, was submitted to the Kerala government. Now this project has been merged with the project Vimukti, which was presented by Sri Rajiv in the earlier session. Mr. Ambadi is the one who brings a lot of innovation into the area that he is assigned by the government. Media is a double-edged sword. It can make or break, but he has been a torchbearer to do the making of society with appropriate and innovative interventions. So may I invite Dr. K. Ambadi to share with us his experiences.
Good afternoon, Father Kyriakos, Mr. Jose Dominic, Ms. Sudha Nambudiri, respected dignitaries, and my dear friends. So I will be hardly taking 10 minutes of yours before the lunch. So before starting, I would like to share with you a small short film which is directed by me, written and directed by me on this topic. It will be hardly 2 minutes. After that, I will take 8 minutes to conclude. I think that will set the mood for our conversation.
Speech of the day, Maya 5B. And topic of the day, my father, my role model.
My father is my role model. He takes care of me and my mother. He buys me my favorite toys. He helps me in my studies. എൻ്റെ അച്ഛനാണ് എൻ്റെ മാതൃകാ പുരുഷൻ. അച്ഛൻ എന്നെയും എൻ്റെ അമ്മയും വലിയ ഇഷ്ടമാണ്. അച്ഛൻ എനിക്ക് ഒത്തിരി കളിപ്പാട്ടങ്ങൾ വാങ്ങിത്തരും, കഥപുസ്തകങ്ങൾ വാങ്ങിത്തരും, എന്നെ പഠിപ്പിക്കും. അച്ഛൻ വീട്ടിൽ വന്ന പിന്നെ ഞങ്ങളുടെ വീടൊരു സ്വർഗമാ. My father takes me to park, plays with me. അച്ഛൻ എന്നെ പാർക്കിൽ കൊണ്ടുപോകും, എൻ്റെ കൂടെ കളിക്കും, എനിക്ക് ഐസ്ക്രീമും വാങ്ങിത്തരും. ഞങ്ങൾ ഒരുമിച്ച് സിനിമയ്ക്കും പോവും. എനിക്ക് എൻ്റെ അച്ഛനെ വലിയ ഇഷ്ടാ. I love my father. ദേണ്ട് കിടക്കുന്നടി നിന്റെ അച്ഛൻ. ഇതെന്റെ അച്ഛനല്ല.
When we are discussing the role of media, we have to also understand how the media has evolved over these decades. As we all know, the evolution of media and evolution of the mankind is quite dependent on the technology of the times. So when maybe many years back, many decades back, we were only having the print, the advantage of print, the printing press was the technology, and we were dependent on the print media, especially the newspapers or the magazines for communication. And those were the mediums of mass communication, where we are addressing to a large gathering. So as we all know in the mechanics, if somebody has to print the newspapers, we know that all the newspapers have their regional bureaus, they have their printing presses in various districts, because the distribution itself is a challenge. Because you have to print your newspaper, somebody has to carry it physically to your house. Then only you will be able to read it. So you are printing something, somebody is giving a message. There are a lot of gatekeepers. If I want to do something, I have to approach some person who knows in the newspaper, I may be a journalist, and journalist or a reporter will make a story. And that will be, the gatekeeper will be the editor. The editor will decide whether it has to be published. And somehow if it is published, it has to be taken to the house, and we don't know how many of us will read that. So when we were trying to communicate during those era, we were communicating with an idea that somehow if we get published in a newspaper or a magazine, it will reach the target audience. When the technology changed in the late 1950s, with the advent of television, a visionary like Marshall McLuhan said that medium is the message. And actually, we are living an era when this message, or his message of medium is the message, is more relevant. When it became television, it became very easy. If you have a receiver, you will be able to get the signals at your home. So you are reaching an electronic media, the message will definitely there. There was no need for a carrier to physically make it reach. It was not gross, it became subtle. So the content was there, but content has to be taken. Now, actually, we are living in an era where everything is mobile. We are living in an era of convergence. 10 years back, there was a book written by an American author which said that your TV is ringing. So at that time, we were thinking that it was an exaggeration. So it has now become a reality that everything has come, not just your TV, everything has come into that mobile platform. The platform is your television, the platform is your phone, the platform is your laptop, the platform is your bank, the platform is your shop, your shopping complex. So everything is there. It is giving you a lot of challenges as well as a lot of opportunities. So when you are taking the idea of a media there, earlier, as I told you, it was very distant kind of thing. You have to approach someone. It was not democratic. There were a lot of gatekeepers. Now, if you take your mobile, that mobile itself is a camera. It itself can record. It itself can transmit. It itself can receive. And through it, you can enjoy. And you can be the anchor, or you can be the journalist, or you can be the communicator. So that is the advantage that technology has given to us. So how best we can use this for communicating any messages that are of importance. So as you are all experts in that, or you have been hearing this discussion against alcohol and substance abuse, we always talk in terms of supply reduction, demand reduction, harm reduction. So supply reduction generally has to do with a lot of policy, enforcement. So it has to do with government. So what is the role of the media? So media has always been an effective tool for advocacy, for mounting pressure, for setting agendas for the government. So technically, all the mass media, whether it is newspaper or a television, that can be always used for creating pressure on the government. But now, as I said, as we all know, we have all the opportunity to be a media by ourselves. You can have your YouTube channel, and that YouTube channel can earn subscribers. You can directly communicate. This social media, it is a medium of interactivity. So what has happened from the earlier years to the present year is that, technically speaking, what has happened is audience fragmentation. Earlier, when I am addressing, as we say in Malayalam, Manya Mahajanangale, ladies and gentlemen, you are addressing thousands or lakhs of people, either to a television or in a very big crowd of meeting. Now that is not required. The audience has become fragmented, and that fragmented audience can be now directly targeted by each one of you. If you want to build pressure on government, you can start a hashtag campaign. You can make your profile pictures of a specific campaign. And mind you, all policies are taken by politicians, and politicians are afraid of nothing but numbers. So if you can show that you have numbers, definitely policies will change. Advocacy can be done. So then here, actually, the new media or the social media is an effective tool to bring enormous amount of pressure on policymakers, and it will have tremendous impact. And while coming to demand reduction also, of course, we have seen campaigns like Kudiyalladu Jeevitham by a news channel called Asianet. So media groups can be encouraged to do campaigns they can bring out positive stories, they can bring out stories that can enlighten us on the various aspects of this. So that is there, that can come in newspapers, that can come in all these kind of traditional media. Here actually, I would like to bring that when we are actually trying to address demand reduction, we are actually trying to communicate to our youth, communicate to our target audience. So it has to be a quantitative as well as a qualitative solution. I will give an example. This I have read in one of the journals. In Australia, melanoma was, or melanoma probably is, a challenge for those who are in the age group of 15 to 30. So the youth in that age group were having increased incidence of melanoma. So the government want to have a campaign to specifically address this group, to periodically undergo checkup, to ensure that they don't have or they have not got this disease. So they have not got for any typical kind of campaign. What they have done is that they have developed an app called Miss Melanoma. So this Miss Melanoma, what it will do is that for any youth within the age group of 15 to 30, if he or she goes to a place where there is enormous amount of sunlight, whether it can be a beach or some other place, and if they do a selfie and post in a social media, this app, this Miss Melanoma will automatically go and love that photo, which says that I love you, I love to come to you. That means it is what, and it is being said by a cancer. So what has been told is that this campaign or this innovative measure had actually 3 times of impact. What they were expecting was this many amount of numbers of checkups will take place. So 3 times of that happened with this thing. It's a small innovation. You have not spent much money, you have developed a small app. So what I am saying is that it is possible to target specific kind of people for specific thing in this era of, so this is actually opening up a very good quantitative option for addressing demand reduction. So the film which I have shown you is actually a qualitative thing which you have to think. Even WHO studies have shown that fear is not at all a factor that will work in favor of demand reduction. So we have to devise messages in such a way that the ego barrier of the recipient is not coming as a barrier in preventing that message from going down. Somehow, here actually what we were trying is that we were trying to somehow address that feeling of a parental feeling, whether actually when somebody is going to take alcohol or somebody is going to take drug abuse, whether they can think in lines of as a responsible parent, whether I am a responsible parent, whether I am actually catering to the need of a child. This is one kind of messaging to a particular kind of thing, but we can devise lot of things in which actually we are not directly saying things, but we are able to subtly communicate, subliminally communicate to our target audience. I think that will be more effective than directly communicating such messages. So in this era of new media in which we can communicate directly with anyone, communication has become more of science than arts. Earlier, we used to say that people who can write well, who are good copywriters, who are good artists, are good communicators. That thing is over now. We are living in an era where actually data has become very important. It has become a data-driven society. Data are giving us innovative ideas and insights, and that will give us innovative ideas to implement schemes, and it will also help us to study the impact of that. So I think we should also use data as an important tool in devising messages through media, to appropriate media to generate appropriate content so that we will get the desired result in a more effective way. Thank you so much.
I thank Dr. Ambadi for being right on the dot with the time. I'm sure a lot of comments or questions would be arising in your minds. Please save them and note them down. We will have the questions answered at the end of the 3 presentations. The next person we have is Mr. Jose Dominic, former Chief Executive Officer, CGH Group of Earth, Group of Hotels, India. You know, the media always wants to have the last word. Whether you give it to them or not, they would take it. And that's another reason why Ms. Sudha wants to have the last word. So we have Mr. Jose Dominic coming on the podium and sharing with us his experiences and the initiatives that he has taken in the hospitality industry and the tourism domain to promote healthy values and practices which prevent the wide spreading of substance abuse. Mr. Jose is the former CEO of Kerala-based CGH Earth Group of Hotels, one of the pioneers of responsible and sustainable tourism in India. He also engages in panels of responsible tourism and is one of the founder members of Eco-Tourism Society of India. Looking into the future of tourism, he is convinced that tourism is about how much we can preserve our ecology, heritage, culture, and community. His vision of a responsible tourism model for the state of Kerala has also been instrumental in bringing awareness about clean, green, health dimension into tourism. A fervent advocate for drug-free Kerala, Sri Dominic lends active support to the life-building initiatives by Project Vanda, and he is also on the advisory board of Project Vanda. I know from my earlier experience with Mr. Jose Dominic that he has worked a lot to bring a healthy scene into the hotel and hospitality industry to prevent child abuse by bringing healthy protocols and minimum standards into the hospitality industry. He has also been instrumental in adopting the neighborhood in which his hotel facilities are located so that the local youth are prevented from engaging in negative attitudes and unhealthy lifestyle by promoting their employment in those facilities. Over to Mr. Jose, and I wish you a very informative hearing.
Thank you, Father Kyriakos. Boys, girls, ladies, gentlemen, today is World Tourism Day. I think appropriate time for this discussion. And I'm thankful for Vanda to have invited representatives of the tourism industry to talk about how tourism can make Kerala safe. And tourism, I would say, is as represented in this discussion as an industry of how Kerala's growth and development in tourism has played a role in this big subject of substance abuse-free environment. In the earlier discussion, I was alarmed, and I think alarming sound made by Diana when she said Kerala is next to Punjab. If you go back to your news, your TV screens and the media earlier, and you would see that the Punjab election was fought on this battle, on making Punjab drug-free. That subject does not seem to be in our vocabulary. The concern, I think, that we need a body like this, and the concern of Kerala is that when you hear figures like 10% school going and 25% college going are victims of substance, that is an alarming figure indeed. Now let me get back to my subject, how tourism can be an instrument of making Kerala safe. And I think that will come from the story of Kerala development. Post-independence, Kerala went through a tumultuous phase, much before all the boys and girls were born. And we had the first democratically elected communist government in the world, with the EMS Namudripal's government came in. And we had industrial trade unionism strife which really what it did was scared industry away. And therefore, in a way, what it did was it kept the smokestack away. And therefore, in a way, we could now say that kept Kerala's environment safe. But it had other consequences. The mother would tell her children, boy, girl, study well so that you can go away. And they did study well, and they did go away in vast, unprecedented numbers. The Malayali or the Kerala youth, boys and girls in other Indian cities, across the world, and in the Gulf countries. In such an unprecedented number, they are there. And all that has played a big role in how social development in Kerala is taking place. Kerala is, of course, in a couple of years ago, in an event called Emerging Kerala, a summit it was called, the then Chief Minister who delivered his keynote address talked about the two most important change-making events of Kerala. One, he said, was the phenomenon of the NRK. NRK, as you would then, all of you would know, translate to non-resident Keralite. Of course, in last year, it resulted in remittance of 1.5 lakh crores every year into the state. But that NRK is a phenomenon which is unique to Kerala. People going abroad, going to Gulf, especially the Gulf. Almost 3 million people from Kerala in the Gulf. And their remittances is building the Kerala economy and helping to build the Kerala economy. And that remittance is even influencing consumption. I'm not just coming to the subject at the moment here. The other the change event of Kerala, according to the then Chief Minister, who delivered the keynote address, was the phenomenon of tourism in Kerala. Kerala was a late starter in tourism. In our beginning, left governments thought tourism to be an embarrassment. It was luxury, capitalist, bourgeois, and there was nothing to be encouraged. But as tourism is really, as we see today, is a post-war phenomenon of the world getting into the jet aircraft. Travel became more economic, more affordable. And Kerala's too yearned to get a share in that pie. Indian tourism began with Delhi, Agra, Jaipur. We called the Golden Triangle. And we were, as far as Kerala was concerned, in the backwaters. Slowly, in a way, because investors were afraid, small entrepreneurs did what they could, which is small, in a manner which they knew, which is local. It is the credit of the genius of the small entrepreneurs of Kerala, the small and indigenous became world class, winning recognition for Kerala by the award of what is called the UNDP award, of Ulysses Award for responsible tourism. Now Kerala is seen as in leadership in responsible tourism. So tourism today has now, from being from a late starter, tourism today plays a big role. It creates, it contributes to 11% of Kerala's economy. In today's newspaper, you will have seen a report by the tourism minister which says our aspiration with Kerala is that tourism should contribute 15% of our GDP. That role of tourism now plays a part in the subject that we have today, how it can make Kerala safe from substance abuse. I'll just narrate a small story in our own example. And in a village called Mararikulam, not very far from Cochin, in 1995, the company which I was associated with, and I'm still associated, we decided to set up a small resort on that village. And that village of between Cherthala and Kochi is considered to be among the most impoverished parts of Kerala. people's employment was coconut and fishing, both of which were degraded. Being not far from Cochin, there were jobs, day jobs to be had in Cochin. So many people, many people would come to Cochin, get work in construction sites and earn maybe between 500 to 1,000 rupees a day, but never known whether that job will be there next day. So what you did was, took the money and spent it. And therefore, alcoholism and substance abuse became a factor in that local economy. Now what did tourism, I'm just giving a citing example to it. This one little resort there, what it did was, it became very successful. It had a model which was more from our end, which was clean, green, healthy, based on environment protection, local employment. About 15 or 20 local boys and girls got worked in that establishment. Very soon, seeing the success of that establishment, many more resorts came in that village. So from one hotel, one resort, there were very soon, in the next couple of years, about a dozen more came. From 30 rooms, there were about 400 rooms in that village area, in that village panchayat. So from 15 or 20 people, 300 to 400 people from that village became employees in that hotel. Now what did that do? It suddenly changed the story. That it was no longer necessary, that there was hope, there was jobs, that one could work. And the moment one boy or girl worked in a hotel, in a job, then she or he, the family became intensely concerned about their own behavior, that their social standing, their esteem, all rose. So it had a huge role in changing the behavior of the village itself, that small employment to the boys and girls who were there. So much so, a question was asked, two institutions in our community raised this question, and I was present in those two times. One was, a very strong factor in that community was the Catholic Church. There are many, many schools, there are many, many institutions there. They began recognizing this phenomenon and then tried to find out what was happening. Why they suddenly, despite all the best efforts, suddenly there was some new energy was beginning to come. People are talking about and acting for preventing abuse, to make their location, their villages safe. And then realized that it was this phenomenon that the champions, we heard that word before, the champions were people who had jobs here. Said, look, I've got this work, don't spoil my chances of my growth, my employment by behaving irresponsibly. So the families spread to the villages. So from 15 or 20, it began with 300-400 people. So the entire community suddenly became charged with the subject. The other institution which took up the subject was, well, both are on the same boat, though on opposite sides, was the Communist Party. They too asked the same question, and they have the party cell. And so they invited me for a discussion in the party cell, of course, about they have their own issues relating to their own conflict. The agenda was haves was have-nots. But today they were asking another question. The question they said is, what is happening? Do you recognize this? And they too said that, yes, the youth who have got jobs are making a big change in our community. No longer is it necessary for them to join the union, to go to Cochin, get at a work site, earn 800 to 1,000 rupees, and spend it abusively. Instead, they got hope, they got a career, they got something to look forward to. Looking at jobs, looked at families, becoming family men, getting married, having children, having a future. And that made such a big change to that community. And that's how the role of tourism can do. Sorry. Yeah. So the tourism can do to Kerala as a whole. Whether it's tourism or other industry, it has a role to be a preventer of abuse. And I believe that today on World Tourism Day, Kerala's taking leadership in responsible tourism, where I just conclude one statement that the consumer who is a tourist, the guest, or the stakeholder, will find luxury when the consumer's interest is subjugated to the interest of community and subjugated to the interest of environment. That will create the kind of safe, God's-own Kerala that we want Kerala to be. With this, my time is up, and I thank you, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, for your listening.
Thank you, Mr. Jose Dominic, for that wonderful presentation of how acting locally with the tourism industry can change the lives of people in a large area where these facilities are located, and it can become a model to make Kerala or any region in the world tourism friendly and at the same time drug free. Media sometimes is sweet and sometimes it is sour. Sweet because it is so useful for us, and sometimes it can also disrupt our lives. Looking at from the side of the media, media has to strike a very delicate balance between values and revenue, especially a large media like the print media in a state like Kerala. If you take a typical picture of Kerala, it is the ordinary citizen sitting in the tea shop reading the newspaper that is so vivid in our minds. So print media is so powerful in Kerala, and it still has to struggle with values and revenue. But we have in Miss Sudha Nambudiri a person who is proactive, who has created a lot of initiatives in the media to advocate for promotion of values and healthy living, especially for younger people, women and children. Ms. Sudha is an experienced journalist with a strong media and communication professional history, working in the newspaper industry. She specializes now in the Times Group with the editorship of science and technology sector. And she also works in the health, environment, and social issues concerning women and children. She is skilled in research reporting and news writing, copy editing, and online journalism. She has received the Manna, the Green Letter Award in 2018 for reporting very creatively on environment, science, and agriculture and soil-related issues in the post-flood scenario in Kerala. When the farmers didn't know how to deal with all the mud that had accumulated in their fields, she had written a series of articles to bring hope in their lives. Over to Ms. Sudha Nambudiri to enlighten us on how media can be used for social transformation.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be around here. I was sitting on the other side of the forum day before yesterday. I sat through and listened to quite a few speeches, very interesting speeches on the international scenario. I work for the Times of India, which is the largest circulated daily, not just in the country, as far as the numbers go, in the world. So the group actually rivals with its own publications for the top spots. We have the Times of India, the Economic Times, the Mirror, and we do have a very strong online and Times Now, which is the news channel. That's my introduction of my media group, but I hope to represent the working journalist group, which actually reports and writes about issues related to the happenings in the society. My area, you might be wondering why a science editor is sitting and talking at a forum like this. One is I'm standing in for my editor. I just put an apology for him. There are a lot of happenings, so he asked me to stand in. And second thing is I write on children and youth. I take up social issues related to, and I actually like to monitor the happenings in the society. With this, I'll just start with, the span of 30 years, I've seen the growth of journalism from a rookie reporter who had no access to telephones, and we had only this landline connection, and after 5:30 all the government officers everybody would go home, and we didn't have access to getting information as easily. We had to be on the spot. We had to run around trying to find officials' homes so that we get some information after 5:30, after the office hours are over, if there's any late night development. Okay, today that scenario is completely changed. Everybody is accessible, information is accessible, there is an overflow of information, and we really don't know how to deal with it. And along with this, there is a lot of fake news happening, constructed news. There is an organized media, there is an unorganized media, there is, like Dr. Ambadi just mentioned some time back, the media which is right there in your hand. So in that backdrop, working as a socially responsible journalist is a very tough role. And often when I get invited to interact with people and it's media and something, and I end up facing a lot of flack because of the flaws in the organized media. We have our own challenges, we have our own professional issues, but I'll just start with a story of how we monitor the changes in the society. Now, crime and drug abuse are often reported together. It's always linked. And so when we are reporting crime, what we end up, and we also know that there's a substance abuse or there's a drug peddler or some such connection to it, often the importance goes to the crime, and somewhere along that filing of the story or the storytelling, we bring in this element saying that he must have done it in the backdrop of the substance abuse. So like I heard the other day, very interesting point from the speakers in one of the panels, where they were saying about how, the crime or the act is actually, the drug abuse is actually camouflaged by the crime. That is, because he was into drugs or he was in the influence of alcohol, he'd committed the crime. So that reality, actually, it was very interesting, new information for me. But I would like to, tell about a story. This happened about a decade ago. Kerala was discussing about a toddy ban. So there was some incident of some illicit liquor tragedy or something like that. I can't really place the incident, but so the district had a ban on toddy shops in several places. So I was working for another paper then, and I was the chief reporter there, and journalists also drink, so all the reporters were very keenly discussing about the impact of this ban and how is it. So I said, why don't you guys go and check out whether it's happening? Always we do that. When the government comes up with some kind of a policy, we always go to counter check it whether it's really happening. So on that aspect, we sent out reporters across. And morning, very enthusiastically, all the boys went out, and they came back in the evening and said, ma'am, no such incident. We are not getting toddy anyway. So they went very enthusiastically to buy toddy, and they didn't get it. I said, okay, so it's 1 week only into this whole thing, so maybe let's check it out next week. 2 days later, one of my senior colleagues had gone to a school, to his son's school. So he was sitting because his son had got into some fight with some colleague and with another boy, and then the principal says, what do I do? Look at this generation. Now you see, and she picks up a bottle of toddy. And this is what she had found in the school bag of a 12th class student when they were checking bags. They were checking bags for some other, whether there was money or any such. The random checks keep happening to check out whether any, like these kind of things, and they got a bottle of toddy. Now, she said, please don't report it. We didn't report it. It was not this thing. But that is when we first noted that this abuse is taking a different turn. Till then, we had been looking at only criminal or people with any kind of a criminal background, or maybe the socially lesser sections of the society which was, accessing it or committing some crimes related and all that. We had this very, that's how it is kind of thing. Reporting was always like that kind. But then that perspective changed. This child was just like one of our children from the middle class family, upper middle class family. But how did he get access to the study? Then that is when the police, we didn't actually, I told my crime reporter, why don't you just alert the police that something like this happened? Don't mention the school, just mention that something like this has been seen. Now, the reporter called up the commissioner during one of those meetings that they generally drop in, and this came in as a discussion. And the commissioner then told us that they have been getting reports of different kinds of addiction and cigarettes, and then that is like, I'm talking about a decade back now. Cigarettes, fags are not a new thing, but then they had already started. This happened almost a decade ago. Then later on, I moved into the Times of India, and I used to again write all these issues. I used to have access to, reach out to so many parents coming. And one day, one parent from one of the Kochi Islands, he calls me in a very panic situation. He said, ma'am, I have to talk to you. I said, okay, fine. So he actually calls me for several other issues. He's one of the church, he works for a church, and he said, I'm in a real soup. I asked, what happened? He said, my son has, I was checking his bag for a pen, and I found a cigarette in his thing, but that looked like a chocolate. So initially I thought it was a chocolate. Later on I realized that it is not a chocolate, it is a cigarette. But it is camouflage like that. My son doesn't smoke, my son doesn't have this kind, I don't know, but he has been behaving very strangely. I said, then you should start taking note of it. But ma'am, now what to do? I said, okay, let's see what we can do. He said, can you call the police? I said, are you sure you want to call the police in? He said, ma'am, I want to call the police in because it's not just my child. My child says he hasn't consumed it. I don't know, but the fact is that somebody has reached it out to him. So the network is very big. And then we called the cops, and we did not say as usual, we hid all the rest of the thing. We said that something like this is happening in schools in that area. We just opened it out, let the cops find it. Because tracing out, we don't know where all it would reach to. And during that raid that happened that week, they managed to seize quite a few of those kind of cigarettes which had. And that is when the system of, keeping the cops on our side also we developed those kind of links. So we have actually, across media, we actually have a very good working relationship with much of these agencies because it helps both ways. Of course, there are a lot of other side of things there. Sometimes the officials are not happy with the way we've reported it. But I think we should actually look into system like how we have the child line. Now, over the years, Kerala has developed a very strong child line network, which alerts on child abuse. I think we should actually look into developing that kind of networks which work very informally, wherein if a child comes to know that somebody else is having this, among them they will not complain. Peer groups, they have a lot of peer pressure, and then friends matter more than family for the adolescents. We have to understand that. But somewhere we have to, there are kids who actually would like to report. They don't know how to report. Now that parent calls me, he should not be calling me. He should have had a separate system in place where he could have reached safely without fear of being, pointed out that, oh, your son is, this thing. So he didn't want that. So that is why he used a safe route out. But there has to be another system in place. While on that, I would also like to talk about another issue is that as a media, we kind of have been noting and we have been writing. I personally also write on how parties and how the youngsters, more and more youngsters are, how more and more youngsters are coming in into using this abuse, and they don't understand. The number of carriers are increasing. Students who are studying outside, I am told, we've been told that are also playing the role of, this thing. And the format of, now it's not ampules, it's now tablets, it's easily prescribed medicines, accessible. This is a huge problem. I don't think we can overnight come out with some this thing, but we will need to put in some parallel systems in place. And I would like to assure you that as a media, responsible media, we will be there to help the society overcome this issue. I use my forum as also, I go to universities and teach media ethics to journalism students, and this is one of my favorite topics. Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Sudha, for that enlightening presentation on responsible media and investigative involvement in society to report matters to authorities and getting effective action from the stakeholders. We have 1 minute left from our given time for asking questions. If there is someone who would like to ask a question, you have the chance. Otherwise, all these eminent panelists will be available to you immediately after the session over lunch for you to clarify. Yes, please mention your name and please ask the question.
I'm Ebimon Joseph, representing Oriental School of Hotel Management, Wayanad. So my question is to Mr. Joseph Dominic. First of all, thank you so much for implementing those eco-friendly practices in the CGH property. So my question is that in CGH property, in all the hotel industries, in all the hotels, we are having a separate smoking area for staffs. All the hotels, like all the 5-star hotels. And the main reason when I contact them personally is that due to the work pressure which is faced by the staffs in the hotel industry. So what all are the practices that you are, like the CGS group is implementing against the work stress which is faced by the employees?
Yes, to answer your specific question, staff have a smoking area, guests have a smoking area. Yes, these are substances. The topic that we have today is to reduce its abuse. Many years ago, if I went to a family function, a wedding, there would be a young boy or girl going around with a tray, and on it will be cigarettes, offering cigarettes. Now it's unheard of. The number of smokers have come down. And then these are all positive signals of success. But some, on the other hand, just 2 years ago, we had near prohibition in Kerala. And they said that all bars have to be shut down, only the 5 stars will, you are only allowed to drink only if you are rich. That is what Kerala's policy was. And what did that result in? And quickly they had to turn around and bring it back. They had resulted in increase of abuse. Somebody talked about, I think my colleague here talked about toddy and how, when the moment prohibition came in, abuse of alcohol went up dramatically. They graduated from things like toddy, from beer, to more, from spirits, to even more deadlier stuff. So I'm not at all justifying that maybe drugs are abusive by nature, but in terms of cigarette or you say, I mean, in this list of substances, it would say food, video games, screen. I think today when you go to a table, to go to 4 youth, the conversation they have is not between themselves, it's between them and their screen. So, the question that you raised, and I know I'm standing between you and lunch. Addicted to smoking is not stress. It is not at all stress. You don't let anyone fool you with that. By smoking, the stress is not going to be reduced. These are all practices, and in fact, the number of smokers in staff, the number of smokers in this room, the number of smokers in society are drastically coming down. But I'm not saying, but I'm coming back to another subject which was raised before. I think when the director mentioned it, Kerala is next to Punjab. That's the dangerous subject. That's where we must all be concerned. I think as an industry, tourism, we must be safe auditors, safe preventers, or preventers of abuse or availability. We must be watchdogs. And I think that is a responsible industry. Yes, at CGH, we make it our policy of ecologically being responsible, being inclusive to the community, and showing excellence to create an excellent product. But at the same time, I would repeat here, the customer is not the king. The king is the environment. The king is society. And therefore, I don't know who you among you are from business school. The king is a social reason for tourism. Is not the tourist, is the benefit that it provides the community. One of those benefits is to prevent, to make Kerala safe. But that time is over, I know.
Thank you, Mr. Dominic. I'm sure you still have many more questions on the presentations. Earlier, in the previous days, there was a lot of information imparted on the scientific version of some of these messages. Some of these messages carry values and information that is not really scientific. So we need to educate ourselves on the scientific reasons behind these messages so that we can really know what these substances do. As Mr. Dominic said, stress is not the reason why people smoke, and stress is not relieved really by smoking. So it needs a scientific, thorough scientific explanation and understanding for many such messages that are carried out, because of which people get attracted to these easy, apparently easy solutions. Thank you for your very patient hearing, and I'm sure you will have the opportunity to check out more of your clarifications with the panelists who, all of them spoke about, they come from very, very dicey areas, the media, the hotel industry. But all of them shared with us experiences of how they turned it around for positive action to make the environment safe, the media safe, and also the young people more safer in our society. So we thank them for their able presentations and very soulful sharing that they had with all of us.
Just like to offer a word of thanks to Father Kuriakose and the team, and I request Father Kuriakose to hand over the small gifts to the panelists, please. So thanks a lot. Because we are a large audience and you have a lot of questions, the afternoon has been designed in a way where you meet in smaller groups and you can specifically interact with the panelists. So I just give that information and then we break for lunch. Please listen very carefully. We are meeting as 4 different groups according to the way you have signed up this morning and yesterday. So those who have signed up for the topic, role of enforcement and options for youth involvement in creating a substance abuse-free environment. Your hall is called Sage 1, which is at level 2. Okay, Sage 1 on level 2, so you take the lift and go to level 2. There will be volunteers to guide you, and just outside your hall there's a small TV on which the topic will be distributed. Role of youth and civil societies in creating safe is Sage 2. Okay, so those are 2 halls close by. So Sage 2, that's also on level 2. The other 2 topics, create a child-centric approach to prevention and childcare and recovery will be in, this hall will be divided into two. It will be split during the lunchtime. So one group will be in Cinnamon 1, and prevention strategies and the cannabis example would be in Cinnamon 2, which will be the back of the hall. So your volunteers will guide you. So request is to be in the hall at 2:50, because 4 o'clock we have to start the validatory function because the Member of Parliament has promised to be here. So your workshop will finish at 3:45. So we come back, they need 10 minutes to rearrange the hall after the split up. So 3:45 we break after our workshop. We join here at 4 for the validatory function, and 5 o'clock we end with a high tea and a few of us, a few of the volunteers and speakers speaking. Also, those who have not checked out, we request you to check out during the lunch because they need to clean up and move over to the other guests. So if you have not checked out and if you are leaving today or what your understanding is, so please do your checkout. So in the hall at 2:50, so you have around 45 minutes to 50 minutes to have your lunch, and back here at 3:45. Thank you and God bless.